Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, law nerds. This is not what I was expecting on a Wednesday. It's Wednesday, November 19th. I can't believe it. I just got back from Bravocon and Dr. B was like, so we need to talk about Thanksgiving. I'm like, we've got a minute. He's like, not at all. Not at all. Do we have a minute? But from Vegas, it seems, to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because I think that's all we're going to be talking about this week, because there is a lot going on in Massachusetts. Yesterday was supposed to be a recovery day. Are we all the way recovered? Mostly. Is the voice all the way recovered? No, it's not. Are we going to have to talk all things Bravocon? Yes. We will have a whole members only live with the what happens in Vegas stays on a members only live. We will talk about it. I'm sure there will be moments that we get to talk about it here, but today we have to talk about Karen Read. We have to. She said, well, her lawyers, but she said through her lawyers a month ago, more than a month ago, that she was going to sue everyone. And so she's suing everyone. And so she's suing everyone. So today we're going to talk about that lawsuit. It is 46 pages long. I have been waiting to go through it with y'all. Let's see if we've got the receipts, the screenshots, the timeline, fucking everything. Who knows? Let's see. But what we do have is a list of those that she's suing. We have some information why Canton, the town of Canton, and MSP is not yet sued. And much more, because we've got the Alberts, the McCabes, Higgins. Why do they all have the same lawyer? Why do they all have the same lawyer? And we have trickling out of statements from all of the lawyers. So we're going to talk about all of it. A lot of you are talking about the jacket. This was a YouTube gift. I added a Bravo pin to it because Bravocon, but this was a YouTube gift, but Bravo did them for Bravocon. And I was like, I love that Bravo has one that just says Bravo on the back and has the Bravo logo, but I have a YouTube one. So I'm wearing my YouTube one because YouTube gave it to us first. So it is my Bravocon, not Bravocon, but yes, Bravocon jacket. So today it was time for the jacket. We have lots and lots to talk about today. So we're going to get into it. I see a lot of you have some updates in the chat. Don't worry. We'll get there. Priya said, can you do an EDB one, please? We'll think about it. These were selling for $150 at Bravocon, or $175. They are not inexpensive to do. So we'll think about it. I would like to find more of a sweatshirt option that we could maybe do. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. So we have so much to talk about. Law nerds, we're going to roll the intro. Finn, hold on to this question. Finn said, how is that even possible? Don't worry. We're going to talk about it once we get through this lawsuit. But we had to mention that they were just same lawyer. Because we're going to go through what the lawyers have had to say. We're going to go through it. We have lots to talk about. Law nerds, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is ready for the everything and the all the things. We're ready to go. Are you ready to go? We're ready to go. Let's go. Emily, you've got to make the audio go to the right place or you're not going to hear it. They're not going to hear it. Hey there, I'm lawyer and legal analyst Emily D. Baker, and this is your go-to destination for live court coverage. I break down the law, the strategy, and the evidence in real time so you know what's happening. No law degree required. So join the law nerds in the chat. They're here for the facts, not and let's get to court. A number of you are asking, Emily, did the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City know about Corey Richards? Well, some of them did and some of them didn't, but the ones that didn't sure do now after a plane flight with me. One of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was posting a short or a reel or a TikTok or whatever. And you can hear me in the background. She started singing and walking down the aisles. We'll tell this story in full later, but she started singing and walking down the aisles and recording. I was sitting in the row in front of them, and you can hear me talking to the woman sitting next to me about Corey Richards while they are recording. You can just hear me being like, I didn't think I was that loud. I forget that my voice resonates, but also at the end of this, and I shared it, I'll share it again on Instagram. At the end of this, Heather is like, and Emily D. Baker. And I'm like, and leave me out of whatever we're doing on social media, please. I'm hiding on an airplane. But yes, we were just like the entire time. And then Angie and I chatted about hair. Whitney and Heather were sitting behind me. We chatted about all things Utah. The woman sitting next to me is like, wait, Corey Richards who? And I'm like, and then there were Lawnards sitting across from us while all of this was going on. The Lawnards across from us were at one point like, Emily. And I was like, hey, ladies, how's it going? They're like, oh my God, you're on this flight too. And I'm like, yeah, hi, how's it going? And the woman next to me is like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm nobody. You didn't see anything. You didn't see anything here at all. At all. Brittany singing up and down the aisle the entire time. The Osefos were there. I did not chat with them, but I saw them. The Osefos were there. And our flight crew, our entire flight crew had no idea who any of the housewives were. It was just absolutely hilarious. On our flight was Whitney and Heather sitting behind me, Angie K sitting across from me, Bronwyn sitting the row behind on the other side of the flight, like seats A, B, and then Brittany was in like 1A. As far away from them as they could be. Khaleesi said, you got a shout out from Ryan Bailey on Jeff Lewis Live. Ryan and I have been Bravocon buddies for like the last 3 Bravocons. We always see each other at Bravocon. Ryan Bailey was one of the busiest humans at Bravocon I've ever seen. Him and Kiki were so busy. And they're like, how are you doing today? I'm like, I'm great. I don't have 15 different things I have to be at. I get to just chill. I had a great time with Chanel Ayan. We'll tell you about the final night with Tom Sandoval in members only, because today we need to talk all about Karen Reed, and we'll talk about the rest of it later. Angie K and I are homies at this point. We had a great time. I've got some pictures I'll share. Angie and I had some lovely chats. We did more than say hi. We got to hang out a bit. It was lovely. It was lovely. But don't worry. We'll talk all things Real Housewives. For all of you that are just like, but we need Real Housewives of Canton. I met them. I met the Lawnards of Canton at Bravocon. It was amazing. They're like, oh my God, Emily, we're from Canton. I'm like, come in and give me hugs. 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 Give me all the hugs. Oh my God, Jen, I saw that. I saw that happen. Congratulations to your cousin. I saw your cousin get engaged on stage with Kate from Below Deck. Also, remind me to tell you about my interaction with Captain Jason in an elevator. He was wearing like a maroony purple suit. It's great. It's great. So, Emily got to live her best Bravo life. It was so much fun. I had a brief and lovely conversation with Countess Luann. And at one point, she was like, oh, hello, I'm Luann. I'm like, hello, Countess, I'm Emily D. Baker. And she's like, oh, hello. And I'm like, oh, hello. And she's like, well, hello. And I'm like, we could do this all fucking day. Hello. I saw the McCabes. It took me a minute. I had not caught up on their show. And I was like, cowboys. Me and everybody else at Bravocon was like, cowboys. And then I figured out who they were. It was a brief interaction. We didn't get to chit chat nearly as much, but we'll talk about it. So yes, me and Luann were just like, hello, darling. No, hello, darling. No, hello, darling. I'm like, no. Hello, darling. Yes, all of the things. Lenny E said, EDB Real Housewives of Nashville. I do not have the courage to ever do reality TV. I'll just do this. Also, Chanel Ayan and I had a lovely evening. We got to hang out. She's delightful. Her son is delightful. We had just the best time. And she was like, you have to eat. You have to eat with us. I'm like, girl, I literally just ate. I normally am not going to say no. I literally just ate. She's like, I am insulted that you will not share food with me. I'm like, girl, I am so hungry. Jake from State Farm was the most famous person at Bravocon. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of famous people at Bravocon, like Jerry O'Connell and Andy Cohen and Jeff Lewis and all of the Bravo Lebs. But Jake from State Farm, when I talked to different Bravo Lebs, all of them wanted to meet Jake from State Farm. Every single one. All of them wanted to meet Jake. Like, what do you want to do at Bravocon? I want to meet Jake from State Farm. He was there. He was lovely. He's always lovely. Okay. We have to go to Massachusetts. We have to talk Karen Reed. We do. But before we do that, we have a stream sponsor, which allows Emily to go and do all of the things and make like irresponsible things, like playing music on stream. So a huge thank you to our sponsor that is not Jake from State Farm, but next Bravocon, maybe. So a huge thank you to today's sponsor, FOREO. Leonard, a huge thank you to today's sponsor, FOREO Sweden, because not only do I love their products, but I love the discount that we have for you. I use FOREO Sweden products at home or traveling, which means my makeup routine runs smoother and is easier. And when we're talking about the UFO 3, it really reduces the time of getting all the benefits of a sheet mask because you just pop it in the bag. It's got cooling and heating and a variety of different light therapies. So when you are using the mask, it all soaks in faster, which is one of the reasons I really love the FAQ 202. It is a whole new world of red light skincare because it is this super soft silicone and it stays on your face with an easy adjustable strap that doesn't grab at your hair. So you can be on the computer, watch TV, move around, do whatever you need to do. So if you're using the FAQ 202 with its 8 different wavelengths, including NIR that you can control easily from your app, this is the most complete red light mask because it has so many different wavelengths, including that NIR infrared. And FOREO has just launched their red light peptide serum. So if you want to maximize the benefits of your red light product, the serum is formulated to amplify and accelerate your LED experience. Plus, it's that time of year, so you know where this is going because I have an incredible deal for you. And if you are ready to check out some of FOREO's amazing Black Friday deals and use our discount in combination, we've got you. Check the link in the description and use code BAKER35 for 35% off almost all FOREO products. And you can combine that with most of the products on sale to get up to 50% off some products. So you need to go check it out for yourself. Make sure to use code BAKER35 to get your discount and start shopping FOREO Sweden's amazing Black Friday deals early. Now let's get back to today's stream. We have to get back to today's stream because we have so much to talk about. We are going to run out of time. So let's fly to Canton, Massachusetts. We're going to fly to Logan. We're going to just go direct to Boston. We'll road trip together. We'll stop at Dunkies. We'll road trip down to Canton. Not very far, but we have to fly to Massachusetts. That's the only place we're going to be today and probably tomorrow because, well, so much is popping off in Massachusetts. We can't do anything else. It just is. Board your flight, grab your housewives, sing in the aisles so you can make TikToks. And let's talk about the fact that the day before everyone got their hands on this new complaint in the Karen Reed case, because yes, there is a new civil complaint that Karen Reed has filed against everyone. There were rumblings that the McCabes and the Alberts and Higgins, who all have the same lawyer at the moment, are going to sue Karen Reed for defamation. let's do a quick road so far on what's going on in the civil world of Karen Read, because there is the wrongful death lawsuit from the O'Keefe family and then different combinations of O'Keefe family as executors and as individuals, etc. So there is the wrongful death lawsuit going on between the O'Keefe family and combinations of the O'Keefe family as executors and in their personal capacity, and Karen Read and the bars, C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall. Now, Karen's lawyers said, hey, we want to bring a suit in combination with this. Everything should go to trial together because you're saying she caused the wrongful death. We're saying it wasn't us. It was them that are doing it. So we want to bring these in connection. And the court said, excuse me, you're going to all need to file motions. And that's when Karen Read's lawyers were like, oh, we're suing everybody. And the lawyers for the O'Keefe families were like, hey. Right now, it's the O'Keefes versus Karen Read and these bars. You're talking about bringing in just a crap ton of new people and a whole lot of new allegations, and this case is going to get off the rails. Karen Read's attorneys are saying, well, if our argument is that Karen Read's not responsible for the death, it's these other people, then those claims all need to be vetted together. So clearly, all these cases need to be done together. But what we could end up with is the O'Keefes and Karen, or the O'Keefes versus Karen Read, C.F. McCarthy's, and Waterfall, if they don't settle out of it, which they might not. Then Karen Read versus the McCabes, Alberts, Higgins, Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, Canton, Mass State Police. Then as a counter claim to that, Higgins, Alberts, McCabes versus Karen Read for defamation. So you end up with like three different versions of a lawsuit. Now, they are asking to consolidate all of it. But remember, lawsuits can be related for the purposes of discovery to speed along discovery. And so you wouldn't go to trial together. Karen Read's team is going to argue these all have to go to trial together. Because if they're saying she's going down for wrongful death, then they need to say, nuh-uh, you did it. So we're going to have to see what's going on with all of this. But first, the first story I saw coming out was this story about defamation. So we're going to take a look at the story about defamation first before we go to the complaint, because I'm doing this in the order that I saw them be released. So let's talk about it. That is going to work for now. This is where we're at today. Where is my mention at all?
Mention it all. Mention it all.
Like literally, like for real, we just need all of it at this point. This is coming from Boston.com. The Alberts, McCabes, Higgins eyeing defamation claims against Read and Turtle Boy. That's the headline. The witnesses from Read's high-profile murder case are denouncing her cover-up claims as a vile work of fiction. That is a direct quote. Still hounded by conspiracy theories, months after Karen Read's acquittal, several witnesses from the high-profile murder case are denouncing Read's cover-up claims as a vile work of fiction. The quote-unquote outlandish frame job allegations were part of Read's, quote, scheme to defame and wrongly malign prosecution witnesses and evade responsibility for the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Lawyers for Brian and Nicole Albert, Jennifer and Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins argue in a new brief recently served on Read's legal team. I don't have the brief. I want the brief so badly. I want the brief. If anyone has the brief, just email it to me. I want the brief. But this is in briefing about whether or not these cases should be consolidated because those motions are underway. That's the only thing that makes sense. But the fact that they all have one lawyer is BANANAS to me. It goes on to say all 5 witnesses attended an ill-fated after party at the Alberts home in Canton, where O'Keefe's badly wounded body was found in the snow on January 29th, 2022. We know what prosecutors allege. We know that she was acquitted. We know. It goes on to say Read's legal saga is far from over. she still faces a wrongful death lawsuit from the O'Keefe's relatives who maintain Reed was to blame for killing the Boston police officer. During a September hearing in the civil case, Reed's lawyers announced her plans to bring legal action against several witnesses and Mass State Police investigators. This is what I was just talking about. Reed is seeking to combine her conspiracy and civil rights claims with the wrongful death suit for efficiency's sake, but a judge has yet to rule on the request. The Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins are asking that Reed's motion be denied and her claims filed in a separate case, which she has now done. It does not mean that they cannot be consolidated together later or they can be related. Related means the discovery can go together even if they don't go to trial together. Consolidated means everything goes to trial and the jury, can you imagine that the jury has to decide the wrongful death lawsuit and then decide the suit we're going to read today and then maybe decide a defamation suit? Can you imagine trying to keep that all? It would be much. But juries have done more and done more with less. It goes on to say that the, quote, Commonwealth witnesses vigorously dispute defendant Reed's allegations and will defend against these false claims, their lawyer explained. They said in their no, Emily, that's not what that sentence says at all. They said that their defense will include motions to dismiss, a potential request to move the claims to federal court, and counterclaims against both Reed and Turtle Boy blogger Aidan Carney for defamation and other torts that they have committed individually and in concert. So then we could actually end up seeing them bringing in Turtle Boy into this whole thing as well. So now you have, or could have, you don't have yet, could have Karen Reed, the McCabes, the Alberts, fucking everybody, Turtle Boy, the O'Keefes, and the Bars. Mess. But if you already need a flow chart, Karen Reed's claims against the wrongful death are going to be, it wasn't me. It was all of them. And the reason police couldn't tell you it was all of them is because they didn't do their job. So her defense naturally flows into the lawsuit that she is now bringing, it seems to me. It goes on to say lawyers for the McCabes, Alberts, and Higgins said they had, quote, planned to seek justice in a separate action over allegations that Reed and Carney defamed and substantially injured them through a myriad of false statements. Combining those defamation claims with Reed's conspiracy claims and the O'Keefe's wrongful death suit is procedurally improper at this stage and will make for a much more sprawling case, the lawyers argue. It will be sprawling. That's a 10-10. Reached for comment on the potential defamation claims, Reed defense attorney Damon Seligson said via email, quote, truth is an absolute defense to a claim of defamation, and we will defend Karen Reed vigorously against such baseless claims. Turtle Boy said in an email he had not been served by anyone involved in Reed's case. He cited Jennifer McCabe's heavily debated, quote, how's long to die in the cold Google search and testimony from other witnesses in the Reed trial, including defense crash reconstruction experts who said O'Keefe's injuries were inconsistent with having been struck by Reed's SUV. Or any SUV. Right? So no, they haven't filed this yet. They are saying that they're going to. It goes on to say of Turtle Boy's email, quote, the only reason they have not been arrested or treated as suspects is due to the corruption and incompetence of the Canton and state police, many of whom had direct ties to the Albert family. Continuing that quote, saying, quote, pointing out these facts is not defamation. They are free to sue me and bring this to trial, as I would be more than happy to keep their crimes in the public eye as much as possible and to explain these facts to a jury and let them decide who they think killed John O'Keefe. Can you imagine a defamation claim? Can you imagine the discovery? Oh my. Oh my, my. Oh my. So that's where we're at on the will there be defamation claims. The wrongful death lawsuit is due back in court on Friday. So if they are going to be arguing that on Friday, I'll have to take a look at what time and if it'll be streamed. Because it's going to be a full week of Canton. Today, we need to go to the new Karen Reed suit, and then we will go to the statements because, of course, Alan Jackson made a statement and the attorney for McCabe, Higgins, Albert et al. Made a statement as well. Actually, should we go to Alan Jackson's statement? Let's go to Alan Jackson's statement first, because this statement came out before I saw the filing, seemingly in response to the McCabe statement. Because Ted Daniels said, I reached out to Alan Jackson regarding what the McCabes said. So let's look at that first, and then we'll go back and look at the lawsuit. Sound good? Good. Let's do that. All right. Where do we go? Come here. Come back here. Bird app. Behave. Emily, do you live life in dark mode? Yes, everything in dark mode always. So this is from Ted Daniel, who said, I reached out to lawyers for the McCabes, Alberts, O'Keefe's, and Brian Higgins about Karen Reed's new lawsuit and their proposed claim against her. I'll let you know if I hear back. He did. We'll go through that after the claim. This just released statement is from Alan Jackson and Karen Reed's civil team. Quote, today's filing speaks for itself. Res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself. It is a meticulously documented civil action grounded in evidence, law, and the Constitution. For more than 3 years, Karen Reed was dragged through a baseless criminal prosecution engineered by individuals who abused their authority, manipulated the investigative process, and trampled her rights. He goes on to say, our complaint lays out in stark detail the malicious prosecution, the conspiracy, the civil rights violations, and the intentional misconduct that these defendants visited upon an innocent woman. If these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. Jackson's sitting here straight up just like, where'd it go?
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
If the defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. What we will not do is legitimize a threat to file some imaginary, quote unquote, defamation case. That threat is nothing more than a desperate attempt by these defendants to distract the public from the very real legal jeopardy they now face. Oh no, it's not distracting. The rest of us are like, let's go. Like, let's go. Just all of it. Just bring all of it. Just all. Just all of it. Let it all play out at this point. Just go ahead. Say it's defamation. The defense is going to be truth, which is going to allow more information to come up during the civil case because we're already there. He says that this is nothing more than a desperate attempt by these defendants to distract the public from the very real legal jeopardy they now face. When people start waving around defamation claims to mask their own legal troubles, it tells you everything you need to know. They don't want sunlight. They want silence. Well, what they're going to get is a Streisand effect. That's what they're going to get. The quote goes on to say Karen Reed spent years fighting for her freedom against a corrupted investigation. Now she is fighting for accountability. And unlike the criminal case, this time the defendants don't get to hide behind badges, back-channel favors, or manufactured narratives. They will have to answer in a court of law for every lie, every omission, every manipulated report, and every constitutional violation they committed. You can hear Alan Jackson like banging the table. Every lie, every omission, every manipulated report. He's just channeling his inner Heather Gay. Receipts, timeline, screenshot. I'm never letting that quote go ever. Yeah, every every lie, every omission, every manipulated report, every constitutional violation they committed. Karen Reed is not backing down. Our team is not backing down. Accountability is coming, and these defendants can threaten all the phantom lawsuits they want, but the truth doesn't flinch. Period. There's an actual period. It doesn't say period for those of you listening in the background, but both meanings are appropriate. Period. So that's Alan Jackson's warning to everyone. He's just like, let's go. You know, Jackson loves to be dramatic. So we've got Jackson taking a minute to be like, let's go, everybody. Let's go. So that's Jackson's statement about this new civil complaint. And we are going to swoop and cover, 46 pages of civil complaint. And then we'll get back to the statement of the McCabe, Albert, Higgins group, since they all have one attorney for now. Emily, that seems ill-advised. It is. It is ill-advised. It is ill-advised. But that's up to them to decide. They're going to have to figure it out. I think it's ill-advised. All right. Let's get to this. Let's get to this complaint, shall we? Yes, we shall. This was filed November 17th, 2025. At 3:34 p.m., this came to public attention yesterday. Obviously, the McCabes and the Alberts and everybody knew it was coming because they gave that statement on the 17th saying that they're going to sue for defamation. That came out the same day. You'll notice there are two immediate footnotes on this. Right. This is filed in Bristol. Karen Reed versus, on the other side of the V, Michael Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins. Defendants, footnote 1. I don't know if we can do this after Bravocon. We're still like, ugh. The voice is still not there. Footnote 1. The Massachusetts State Police and Town of Canton will be added as defendants after presentment is made pursuant to the code. Just a note, suing government entities requires a lot more hoops to be jumped through. So they're going to have to go deal with the hoops. So they're saying, it's coming, but we're going to have to jump through the hoops. Complaint, footnote 2. Plaintiffs intend to move to consolidate this action with the related action, a state of John O'Keefe versus Reed et al., for discovery and trial efficiencies. So, they are still going to try to connect this case to the other case. There are two ways that is possible. Either they consolidate them so they would all be under one heading and they would all go to trial, or they relate them so that the discovery is coordinated, but they have separate trials. We will see what the court decides to do. But this will invariably derail, if it goes to trial with the wrongful death case, derail the wrongful death case. It will become a whole event within the wrongful death case, which the judges may seek to limit. Relating it for discovery makes sense because if you're going to have to depose people, you might as well just depose them once and give enough time to depose them once instead of depose them in 3 different suits. So we'll see if they are related. But yes, it will be a whole episode because no one's going to settle. No one's going to settle. Well, the bars might. The bars might settle. But the rest of it, I can't see settling unless like Karen Reed settles with John O'Keefe's niece. I could see that happening. But on the whole, this is not going away. So, introduction. Are you ready? Let's go. 46 pages of complaint. Of Alan Jackson written civil complaint. For 3.5 years, plaintiff Karen Reed was wrongly accused of homicide and subjected to suspicion, arrest, 2 prosecutions, public condemnation, all resulting from the gross misconduct of Massachusetts State Police, MSP, and those working in tandem with MSP to shield from liability the party or parties responsible for the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe III. Now, after being acquitted of all charges relating to Mr. O'Keefe's death, Ms. Reed brings this action to recover for and address the actions of those actually involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death. So, everybody, this is the y'all are the ones. Y'all are the ones. It wasn't me. It's y'all. So, the parties actually involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death and the law enforcement officers who abjectly failed to ensure that justice was sought and served in the aftermath of the January 29th, 2022. I added a "the" that wasn't there. In the aftermath of January 29th, 2022. Paragraph 2. Karen Reed did not kill her then boyfriend, Mr. O'Keefe. Period. That's what it is. That is their lead line in this. And this is the reason that Karen Reed's team is going to want this all heard along with the wrongful death. They are going to argue that this is the defense to the wrongful death. So if you essentially arguing, if you want to sue us for wrongful death, well, we are going to present, she did not kill John O'Keefe. She was not responsible for the death. Y'all are responsible. And so why wouldn't those cases go together? That's going to be the argument from Karen Reed's team. All of that should be heard by the same jury, because how can you decide it if the jury doesn't hear it? Right? So that's why they are arguing to consolidate this into one trial with the wrongful death. It goes on to say, and we've heard this throughout the criminal case, and we've heard this throughout AJ's arguments, and we've heard this throughout media statements and what have you. It goes on to say, in the early morning hours of January 29th, Mr. O'Keefe was killed in defendant Brian and Nicole Albert's home at 34 Fairview Road in Canton in an altercation during a late night house party where other defendants, collectively the quote unquote house defendants, after a night of heavy drinking. The house defendants responsible for Mr. O'Keefe's death, some of whom had professional experience with police investigations, concocted a plan immediately after the altercation to avoid culpability and to frame Karen Reed. Rather than call first responders for help, among other actions, the house defendants conducted a Google search. The Google search is going to become a massive part of all of this. The house defendants conducted a Google search for information about how long to die in the cold, moved Mr. O'Keefe's body outside, and placed him on the Alberts' front lawn near the road to make it look like Mr. O'Keefe was hit by a vehicle and that he died in the snow without ever coming into the house that night. They say Mr. O'Keefe's body remained on the Alberts' lawn until Karen Reed found him later in the morning. We'll see. Amanda E. asked in the chat, what do you think the odds are of the crash daddies testifying as witnesses in this case? If this goes to trial, they have to. Because if this goes to trial, they're going to have to relitigate all of how did John O'Keefe die. They're going to have to relitigate all of what they did in the criminal case. And the searches will come into trial again. We'll probably see Ian Whiffen again because the time of the How's Long search will become massively relevant again. And John O'Keefe's phone and whether his phone moved and whether he could have moved. It will be like an entire murder trial, but the standard of proof is lower because it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think because there's a wrongful death and a defense to wrongful death, we will see even more than we saw in the criminal case because they will be able to bring in more about these not witnesses now, these defendants. So now Jen and Matt McCabe's texts become more relevant. The Alberts texts become more relevant. And, hold on. For all of you that are about to ask me the question that you're all thinking, because law nerds, you are wise. Law nerds, you are bae. All of you are thinking, but Emily, marital privilege. Tell him the guy never came in the house was in a group text. A lot of these conversations were in group texts. They weren't just conversations between Brian and Nicole or Matt and Jen. They were group texts. So, in the group texts, you don't have privilege. Nasty Trumpet said, I was just thinking that. Thanks. You're welcome. So, what everybody's doing on their phone's going to matter. And don't they have all the like Life 360 or whatever for Jen McCabe and her family? They have a lot more of where everybody was and what everybody was and what everybody wasn't doing that didn't come in at the criminal trial because they were witnesses. But in this case, they're civil defendants. So if this goes to trial, then more will come in. A lot more. I want to know what everybody was saying to Carrie Roberts. Because during the criminal trial, the defense did not overcome some of the hurdles they needed to overcome to get into third-party culprit. So the third-party culprit evidence did not come in. They never got into a full third-party culprit defense. So in the criminal case, they weren't able to point the finger squarely at any of these witnesses. This is a criminal case yet. This is a criminal case now. Not a criminal case. This is a civil case now, and they're defendants, not witnesses. So now it's mentioned at all. Nishay, I'm going to talk about what I think at the end of this. So I'm going to save this question. Nishay said, how is Carrie Roberts not a party here? The first thought I have about that is she wasn't at the house that night. She wasn't at the house that night. She wasn't at the bar. She wasn't at the house. She wasn't there that night. So there's a lot more here. And absolutely, Jeanette in the chat said, Proctor's messages? Absolutely more of Proctor's messages because now Proctor's a defendant. Absolutely more of Proctor's messages. So now, many more doors are open and the standard of proof is lower. Oh boy. But I think this is why we're going to see these potential defendants counterclaim for defamation, because then it's a full just mention it all and bring it all into trial. Okay. We're only on paragraph 2. We've got a long road to go. Jake B said, will Karen take the stand now that it's civil? Let me get to the end of this and see what I think. I think now that she doesn't have any potential criminal liability in this way, she probably has to. I don't see how you go through this without her taking the stand. So, the defense. I'm going to keep referring to Karen Reed as the defense. It's going to take me a minute because she's the defense in both the cases we're covering except for this one. The plaintiff, Reed. Reed, through her attorneys, is alleging that O'Keefe was killed in the house and brought outside and framed, and that he remained there until the morning. It goes on to say, from the beginning, investigators from MSP allowed the quote-unquote house defendants to direct the investigation away from themselves and towards Miss Reed. The house defendants were a well-connected and close social group with strong ties to law enforcement. The Alberts are a prominent family in Canton, and the investigating police officers knew them well. The lead investigator for MSP, former trooper Michael Proctor, grew up in Canton and resides there to this day. He has been and remains close personal friends with the Albert family. House Defendant Brian Albert was a longtime Boston Police Department officer, and House Defendant Brian Higgins was an agent with ATF. The fact, it still boggles the mind that the police chief for Boston PD was like, we don't go here. We have nothing to do with this case. Excuse me, the victim and the location of the crime were both connected to Boston PD. And you're like, we have nothing to do with this. Ugh. Awful. Absolutely awful. It goes on to say, adhering to the unwritten rule of quote unquote protecting their own. We're going to have to talk about Boston PD another day. There's more on Boston PD that we just can't get to today. There's more. Just asterisks. Just wrong button. That was the wrong button. There's more coming out on Boston PD. We're going to have to do it a different day. We can't do it today. I know it's there. There's more. Just we'll get back to it because there's so much more. There's so much more about the Boston Police Commissioner Cox pressuring other officers to change things in IA investigations. We're just not there yet. So just pause. KC910 said wrong button of adequate effect. Trisha Ann said, can you refuse to be deposed? I'm holding on to that question. We'll get there as we get to the end of this. I know all of you are like, oh my God, what? I know. Just we're coming back to it. We're just not going to get there today. I'm not going to make it. We're not going to make it. No, we're not. That's a deep cut. We're not going to make it today. No, we're not. We're not going to have enough time. Continuing on. Adhering to the unwritten rule of protecting their own, Proctor and his MSP colleagues intentionally disregarded the obvious and compelling evidence tying the house defendants to the murder. Specifically, O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with a physical altercation. He had bruises and lacerations on his face and a deep gash in the back of his head, suggesting, look, this is what they suggest. I don't agree with all of it. We will get there. Suggesting he was punched and fell backwards, hitting his head on a rigid surface. That is what they are going to argue. We'll get there. He also had dog bite wounds and scratches on his right arm and forearm. Yup. That should have been investigated. Shouldn't it? Could a dog have knocked him over? Also possible. There's a lot of possible. Here's the thing. If all of those things are possible and they didn't investigate, that's kind of the point of this, isn't it? The point is there were all these other possibilities and they never investigated it because it was just like, oh, she did it. So if all of those things are possible and they didn't investigate, that all pulls into this civil suit. I don't think Karen Reed in her civil suit has to prove how John O'Keefe was killed. I think they have to prove that there are reasonable other possibilities that have nothing to do with her that were never investigated. That is more the point. They go on to say equally evident Mr. O'Keefe did not have a single injury consistent with being struck by a vehicle. Agreed. He did not have any broken bones or even a bruise on his legs, feet, arms, shoulder, torso, back, ribs, or anywhere below his neck. They go on to say, and to erase any doubt, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy for the Commonwealth, concluded that Mr. O'Keefe's body showed no signs of a vehicular strike. Yes, Dr. Scortibello. Dr. Scortibelli could not say, because I think, and I think Dr. Scortibello thinks, that this can very easily be a fall backwards. The Commonwealth's Dr. Wolf, the real thing, not hungry like the, or hungry like the, not Dimples. Dr. Wolf said, you guys remember this testimony? The one who makes the cappuccino for his wife with the Karl Lagerfeld looks going on. Oh, I did my residency in somewhere cold and icy, Minnesota. We saw these injuries all the time when people slipped on ice and hit their head falling backward. And I think for Dr. Scortibello, it was, hey, these injuries are consistent with somebody going backward on a hard surface. That could be caused by somebody slipping, a dog jumping on someone being punched, someone being pushed, someone being confronted and trying to back up. And this could be caused by a lot of things. Karen Reed doesn't have to prove which one of those things. But if it could be any of those things should have been investigated, and that's the point. So I think the expert testimony from the Commonwealth will also come in. The Commonwealth experts said this is consistent with hitting your head going backward onto a hard surface. And all of you in the chat are saying, a harder surface than glass? Or grass, not glass, grass. So, they go on to say, despite that, Proctor and others shielded the House defendants by intentionally sidestepping fundamental investigative procedures. I mean, does Proctor know what investigative procedures are at this point? I'm starting to have questions. They go on to say that was propelled by the House defendants' false statements, including that Mr. O'Keefe, quote, never went into the house. Proctor reported in text messages just hours into the investigation that the House defendants weren't going to get, quote unquote, shit for this because he's a Boston cop. Remember? Where is it?
Nope.
Oh, the homeowners are going to be in some shit.
Nope. Nope.
He's a Boston cop too. Nope. Proctor was determined to, quote, make the investigation cut and dry by bringing charges against the girl. Indeed, Proctor made his intentions clear in writing. Karen Reed had, quote, 0 chances of skating. Ellipses. She's fucked. I'm sorry, I didn't say that enough like Alan Jackson. Hold on. I didn't channel it appropriately. She's fucked. There we go. That was the more Alan Jackson delivery of that. We saw these text messages in trial. They go on to say this pronouncement was a mere 16 hours after Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn, and Proctor had not even walked into the house. True to his promise, Proctor and his colleagues did not search the house for blood evidence resulting from the gash at the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, or fingerprints, or for DNA evidence. Proctor did not search the house despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe was discovered without a winter coat, without the hat that several witnesses said he had been wearing that night, and without his left shoe. At Proctor's direction, the house was never processed by a criminalist, or even photographed. No member of MSP, including Proctor, set foot inside 34 Fairview for nearly a week. A week! The police did not examine or take evidence from the Alberts German Shepherd that was at the house on January 29th, a dog that had a history of attacking other dogs and people. MSP didn't know that. MSP didn't know that at all because they didn't look at it. That wasn't discovered till way later. Neither Proctor nor any of the MSP troopers conducted physical examinations of the house defendants for evidence of involvement in the altercation. Yeah, and in Proctor's interview, he said later that he wouldn't have done anything different except maybe to say that he did it. Serena asked, was the hat ever found? It came in at trial. It was in the snow. It came in at trial. They go on to say neither Proctor nor any of MSP troopers conducted a physical examination of the House defendants for evidence of involvement in an altercation, such as marks on their hands, knuckles, or face, or bruises on their bodies. They're going to say that they saw, they put eyes on everybody and everyone seemed normal when they saw them in the house in the morning. That's what they'll say. But no, they did not search them. They did not seize or search the House defendants' phones. They did not. They got Higgins' phone later after he went to the FBI and like downloaded a part of it. Right? He was like, no, I got it. Let me just do it myself.
The FBI!
I'll just go and just do a partial extraction. Just do partial extractions. They did not seize or search the House defendants' phones. They did some of the phones much later. They conducted only perfunctory, unrecorded conversations with Proctor's friends and acquaintances without any attempt to corroborate their stories. They really did a full it's good enough. Meh. Good enough. They permitted would-be witnesses to communicate with each other and coordinate their stories before any formal interviews. Everyone should have been interviewed separately. Everyone should have been interviewed separately and in a videotaped, recorded interview room. Whether you thought they were witnesses or suspects, it's a homicide. Everyone should have been interviewed individually. It's ridiculous. They permitted would-be witnesses to communicate with each other and coordinate their stories before any formal interviews. Yeah, the witnesses testified to it. They said we were putting together a timeline. They allowed critical evidence to be manipulated in some instances and outright destroyed in others. In short, they say by focusing the investigation solely on Miss Reed, as implicitly directed by the House defendants, through the misrepresentations they made to police, Proctor and his colleagues disregarded and failed to obtain pertinent interviews and other critical evidence from the House defendants that cannot now be recovered or recreated. The House, whatever went on in the house, the condition of everyone that night, early morning, the phones, the butt dials. They say Proctor also communicated with the Alberts on his personal phone. Oh, did he now? Shocking. Deliberately back-channeling those communications to circumvent his state-issued device and used his sister as a conduit. For instance, on multiple occasions, Proctor disclosed critical and confidential information about the investigation to his sister, who passed that information to her bestie, it says close friend, but bestie, Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law. Julie Albert then passed that same information to the rest of her family and the House defendants. Part of these communications included Julie Albert's promise to buy Proctor a quote-unquote thank you gift for handling this investigation in a manner that intentionally avoided implicating the House defendants and singularly focused on Miss Reed. Okay, that's not what she said. That's the implication, though. That's the implication. It goes on to say Proctor went so far as to manufacture evidence to ensure that Miss Reed, not his friends and fellow law enforcement officers, were blamed for Mr. O'Keefe's death. This included planting evidence at the scene on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes and on Miss Reed's vehicle to support the false narrative that Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her car, even though he knew Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were inconsistent with a motor vehicle strike and consistent with a physical altercation and dog attack. So these are things that didn't come in the same way at a criminal trial that will come in more fulsomely in a civil trial. Far from conducting the objective investigation with integrity, Proctor personally sexualized and dehumanized Miss Reed throughout the investigation. Oh, we've heard the texts, but here they all are again. Proctor's communications to his high school buddies, sister, and MSP colleagues that he believed would never be discovered exposed the corruption and bias at the core of MSP's entire investigation. And then it goes on with all of the name calling that we've already seen, all of it. It's on the all of it, including the yeah, she's a babe, no ass though. They put it all there. They did take out the full text of the see you next Tuesday though. In other private text messages to his MSP supervisors and colleagues, Proctor bragged that while conducting a search of Miss Reed's phone, he was looking for naked pictures of Miss Reed. Disappointed, I mean, that's speculation, but it's Proctor. He reported that there were quote unquote no nudes so far, which by the way is not nearly to me the most offensive thing he said in all of this. But Proctor said to his sister in text, and they put that in here, quote, hopefully she kills herself. Which, at a civil trial, there's going to be a lot more focus on, right? It goes on to say, Proctor's supervisors and MSP knew about and condoned Proctor's unlawful conduct. In some instances, expressly encouraged his flagrant abuse of power. For example, on one occasion, Proctor's immediate supervisor, Yuri Buchanan, responded with a thumbs up emoji to a text calling Miss Reed the R slur. Thumbs up. Remember what he said in trial? He's like, oh, I was just on my Apple Watch and I just I'm like, oh, your Apple Watch is connected to your work phone? Interesting. Thumbs up. It goes on to say Proctor's supervisors and MSP knew Proctor had a close relationship with the Alberts and that he made no secret of his bias against Miss Reed, demonstrating a clear prejudice against her from the outset. Remember, Buchanan is being sued here too, so is Tully. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, all getting sued here. Relying on manufactured evidence, actively ignoring exculpatory evidence, and without investigating obvious signs pointing towards the House defendants, the Commonwealth secured 2 separate arrest warrants for Reed and a knowingly baseless indictment against her, and then wrongfully prosecuted her for murder. Twice. As alleged below, these unlawful acts not only underlie plaintiff's meritless wrongful death claim against Miss Reed. That's in the other case, not in this case. This is written as if it's already consolidated. But they also form the foundation for Miss Reed's claims against defendants. These acts violated Reed's state and federal constitutional rights, the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act, as well as established Massachusetts tort principles. On January 18, 2025, after a 2-month trial, a jury rejected the Commonwealth's claims. We know this. We're going to skip this paragraph. In response, the Commonwealth has offered only empty platitudes instead of solutions. The head of MSP, Colonel Noble, said, quote, the events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions. Oh, boo-boo, no shit. And take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigative training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhance accountability. Okay. Under my direction as Colonel, the state police has and will continue to improve in these regards. Okay. It goes on to say, in an interview with the Boston Herald, Noble acknowledged the systematic nature of MSP's conduct in the Reed case, saying, quote, I'm eyes wide open. That's an interesting phrase. I'm eyes wide open to a culture issue that I have concerns with as it relates to Trooper Proctor. Just as to Trooper Proctor, bro? Okay. The lawsuit goes on to say those hollow words do nothing to right the devastating wrongs that have been visited on Miss Reed. Colonel Noble's words confess a sickness deep in the marrow of MSP. It's very dramatic. I'm not mad at them in this. There are some cases where you see really just heavy language and it's like, oh, it's way too strong to come out of the gate that way. I don't think there's any language too strong at this point with all that we've seen 3 years in. In some other cases, I might disagree. In this case, no. Is it a bit hyperbolic? Yeah. Am I mad about it? Nah. I'll allow it in this one. Nope. We're letting it go. It's been earned. So they say that Noble's words confess a sickness deep in the marrow of the MSP, but offer no remedy, no medicine, no relief to someone so brutally victimized by it. On Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, following the public disclosure of Proctor's illegal and unethical conduct related to the Reed investigation, the MSP trial board found Proctor guilty as a Class A violation, which included that he was biased in his dealings with a homicide suspect and or brought otherwise himself and the MSP into disrepute. Yeah, it's an understatement, isn't it? They go on to say Miss Reed's life was not merely turned upside down by MSP and the House defendant's misconduct. It was forever changed by the defendant's transgressions and wrongdoing. The years of uncertainty and unimaginable emotional distress have left lasting scars that will never heal. I don't doubt that. I don't think it's hyperbolic either. At the same time, neither Mr. O'Keefe nor his family have received justice. His killer or killers still walk free. But asserting her claims against MSP, Proctor, his supervisors, Canton, the House defendants, Miss Reed seeks, at minimum, to confront and redress these wrongs in others. More importantly, she seeks to force the Commonwealth to fulfill its duty to stop law enforcement from trampling the innocent to protect their own. It's a strong sentence. That is a strong sentence, counsel. I'm not mad. All right. Parties. We know who the parties are. Karen Reed, Michael Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, Brian Higgins, footnote 3. More to come. Footnote 3. As stated above, MSP will be added as a new party by amendment once the applicable presentment period ends. There are other hoops you have to jump through to sue government bodies. They're saying we're doing the hoops. We'll be back. We're doing the hoops and we'll be back. Let's see. Lyndon said that's a rallying cry if I've ever heard one. It really is. It really is. We're not done at all. Jurisdiction and venue, they're going to try to consolidate this. So venue may change from Bristol to, I think the other one's in Norfolk, but I'd have to double check. But they are looking to consolidate these. And the hearing on Friday, I don't know if it's about the consolidation. I need to double check, but that's ongoing. It hasn't been decided. Facts common to all counts. There are 7 counts here that we are going to look at. Some of the facts that we have gone over, we might zoom through a little bit. A lot of this we have seen alleged. A lot of this we know because it was in the argument leading up to the criminal case. A lot of these arguments are the same. I don't think we're going to see truly much new here because they don't have it. But this is definitely going to open them up to getting all the new shit from Proctor's phone and civil discovery, isn't it? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. To making it count said, can Judge Cannoni be sued? No. Judge Cannoni has absolute immunity. Cannot be sued. All right. Before his death, Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed were dating. On the evening of January 28, 2022, they went out for the night. We know that. They met up with a group. We know that. The group had overlapping social relationships. At the time, Brian Albert was a Boston police officer, as was Mr. O'Keefe, though they did not know each other well. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were close friends. Higgins is an officer with ATF. He was also permitted to keep an office at Canton PD alongside Brian Albert's brother, Canton Police Detective Kevin Albert. Kevin Albert had a professional and social relationship with Michael Proctor. Brian and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., and his friends were already at the house. In addition, Colin Albert was present at the house. This is earlier in the night. Later in the night, they all arrive for the after party. It goes on to say, and this is new to us, Miss Reed was reluctant to attend the party for several reasons, including that she was unsure whether they were at the correct location and whether they were even welcome to the late night party. Mr. O'Keefe got out of Miss Reed's SUV and indicated he would check out the party and report back to her. Mr. O'Keefe walked, and this is what she has said in interviews, but we haven't seen in her own words in court. If this goes to trial, I think we will see her testify in her own words. She would need to, right? They go on to say Mr. O'Keefe got out of Miss Reed's SUV and indicated he would go check out the party and report back to her. Mr. O'Keefe walked towards the front door / garage area of the house and entered one of the two doors. A period of time passed without any word from Mr. O'Keefe. Miss Reed, who was still hesitant to join, presumed that he intended to stay, and therefore she left to go home without him. At some point after entering the house / garage, Mr. O'Keefe was involved in a physical altercation, either inside the house or garage. This is their theory. This is a lawsuit. I need to remind everyone, lawsuits are allegations and shade. This is their speculation about what they think they will prove happened. So that is based on that. They go on to say that during that altercation, the Albert's German Shepherd attacked him, and Mr. O'Keefe sustained multiple dog bites and scratches on his right arm. He also suffered an incapacitating counter-coup wound on the back of his head. Mr. O'Keefe's wound was caused by falling backward and striking his head on a rigid surface. The Albert's garage contains such surfaces. They go on to say, by contrast, the head wound could not have been caused by a vehicle strike or falling backward onto a flat, cold lawn like the Alberts. Goes on to say, because of their knowledge of the criminal investigation, the Alberts, the McCabes, and the Higgins knew that calling for medical care would help save Mr. O'Keefe's life. This goes beyond what we heard in the criminal case, but what was asked in the criminal case is, could this have been treated for Mr. O'Keefe to survive? And they are alleging, look, all of them are law enforcement. They have medical knowledge. They should have called for help. And that they could have called for potentially life-saving medical intervention. They say, or they allege, that the Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins knew that calling for medical help would trigger an immediate and irrevocable risk of their own criminal exposure. Therefore, at least the 5 of them, notice they say at least, agreed on a simple plan to exonerate themselves and implicate Miss Reed, and would tell anyone who inquired Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house and hide evidence that he was there. Law nerds, you have to give me 30 seconds. I have to blow my nose. I am still recovering from Bravocon, and I am clearly, A, voice is still voicing, and B, I am still a little congested from traveling. So give me 30 seconds. I'm going to blow my nose. I will be right back. Don't worry. I'm going to put on the music bed and mute the microphone. I think I've only forgotten to do that once. Nobody needs to hear anyone blowing nose into Bravocon. So into Bravocon, into the microphone. 30 seconds. Be right back. Promise. All right, we are back. That's better. That's better. I know all of you have missed the stretch break music. I'm glad. We're going to do our best. It is just, look, It is what it is. It just is what it is. Continuing on. They go on to allege that because of their knowledge of criminal investigations, they didn't want to expose themselves, so they concocted a story that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house. They go on to allege that sometime during the night, they repositioned a Ford Edge vehicle at a spot adjacent to the front lawn. This is based on Lucky's testimony, right? They repositioned a Ford Edge vehicle at a spot adjacent to the front lawn, which obscured the view of that area of the lawn from potential passerbys. At some point further in the night, they carried or dragged Mr. O'Keefe's body to the same area in the yard, close to where one or more of them later claim Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe earlier that night. The plan was devised to make it appear that Mr. O'Keefe had been struck by Miss Reed's vehicle and died as a result of exposure to the cold. Mr. O'Keefe was either dead when the house defendants left him on the lawn or died shortly thereafter. They go on to say after the physical altercation, Higgins left the house and drove to Canton PD in the middle of the night. It's weird. The video of Higgins is weird. The video of him rolling around Canton PD in the middle of the night in the snow is weird. It's weird behavior. And he had been drinking like a lot of Jameson and ginger. And it's a blizzard. And he's getting stuff out of cars. Look, the behavior is so strange. And remember, the civil standard is lower. So, though it's not going to get you into the criminal world at this point, in a civil world, a civil jury is going to be able to look at that and be like, this is sus AF. Sus shit. He later told investigators he had come to do some administrative work. Right. Drunken in a blizzard. You needed to do some administrative work. What's that code for? Aaron Garcia in the chat said, I do love a Jameson and ginger. I'm with you. I'm not mad at what he was drinking. I'm just saying, man was not driving sober. And man was definitely not going to finish up some paperwork drunk in the middle of the night in a blizzard at the office. It's your ATF, bro. Come on. Nobody works that much. Come on. Emily, don't make jokes about the ATF and dogs. Leave it be. Leave it be. Leave it be. Leave it be. Let it go. They go on to say, however, video from inside the station shows Higgins walking down the hallway and surreptitiously entering offices while wearing a hoodie to obscure his face. Surveillance video outside reveals Higgins transporting a large bag from one vehicle to another before driving away. After leaving the station, Higgins and Brian Albert continue to coordinate their stories by calling each other multiple times in the early morning hours. Nuh-uh. Those are just butt dials. Those were just butt dials during, they were just butt dials. They were butt dials and butt answers. They were all just, nobody called anything. No one called. Just, they were just butt dials. They weren't coordinating things. They were butt answers. Everybody's butt got very talented this evening. They were calling multiple times in the early morning hours and ultimately spoke with each other on their cell phones at 2:22 a.m. Isn't it weird? Hold on, where's the other one? Isn't it weird? Where is it? Where's my other suspicious? Where is it? Isn't it weird that the video shows Higgins? The phone's like lit up on his face. You can see the screen lit up on his face like this. The butt answer. The butt answer, in fact, was like this.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
So weird. Oh my God. Brian Allman in the chat said in super chat, prehensile posteriors. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. After leaving the station, Higgins and Albert continued to coordinate their stories by calling each other multiple times during the early morning hours. Later, both Brian Albert and Higgins denied the existence of these phone calls, and then when confronted by their existence by a separate law enforcement agency. I'm sorry, who?
The FBI!
Who was it?
The FBI! The FBI!
A separate law enforcement agency, a non-MSP, non-CPD law enforcement agency. The agents at the agency, when they were confronted with the existence of the calls by a separate agency at a separate proceeding, very secret, very secret, very secret, separate proceeding, federal grand jury, they coordinated the exact same lie, falsely claiming the multiple calls and answers were just butt dials. Everybody, you have a butt dial and you have a butt dial. Everybody gets a butt dial. However, 5 minutes after the Higgins-Albert call, Miss McCabe performed a Google search on her phone at 2:27 a.m. How's long to die in the cold? Misspelling the first word. The timing of that 2:22 call and the supposed 2:27 a.m. Google search, which I will say supposed because so much happened at trial. You know, the timing on that is going to be up for a jury to decide again. A jury wasn't super persuaded about it last time, but a jury wasn't really focused on Jen McCabe. This time they will be. It gets into now Reed leaving the home and looking for John O'Keefe. Reed began to search for O'Keefe after or just before 5 a.m. She phoned Jen McCabe, they allege, who already knew exactly what happened. Miss McCabe insisted that Reed drive to McCabe's house rather than driving to 34 Fairview, which Reed did. The two of them were then joined by Carrie Roberts. Here's the thing that happened at trial one that was illuminating to me is that Karen Reed was saying, I'm going to go by the bar. I'm going to go by Waterfall because I left him at Waterfall. He must be at Waterfall. Carrie Roberts testified, and I believed her, that it was Jen saying, no, we saw you at 34 Fairview. We saw you at 34 Fairview. That was because of Jen. Because Karen wanted to go back to the Waterfall. And they were in the car together and Carrie overheard it. But Carrie, I don't think, was part of all of these conversations. And Carrie's like, wait, what? And Jen's like, no. I saw your car at 34 Fairview. And then they were like, wait, what? So I believed Carrie that Jen was telling Karen, oh no, your car was there. And Karen was like, wait, what? So I'm not surprised that they're going to say that Jen McCabe wanted to be involved in all of this because she wanted to keep everyone in the loop with what was happening. That's going to be their allegation. And I'm not surprised by that allegation, that Jen wanted to run the show that was going on that morning. So they go on to say, however, rather than go to 34 Fairview, oddly, Miss McCabe directed them to go back to Mr. O'Keefe's home where Miss Reed had just come from, after the three of them finally drove to 34 Fairview. The illogical McCabe-directed route to 34 Fairview was intentional. They are saying it allowed the House defendants more time to finish creating a scene and hiding evidence before Mr. O'Keefe was discovered on the Alberts' lawn and first responders arrived. As they approached the house with Miss Roberts driving, Miss Reed saw Mr. O'Keefe almost immediately, screamed for Miss Roberts to stop the vehicle, jumped from the moving car, ran to Mr. O'Keefe. She began rendering aid, including CPR. As the House defendants planned, Mr. O'Keefe's body was, quote, discovered in the front lawn of the Alberts near the flagpole and fire hydrant on the left side of the property, seen from the roadside. The Ford Edge, which had been parked in position to obscure Mr. O'Keefe's body in the middle of the night, had been moved. While Miss Roberts joined Miss Reed administering CPR, Miss McCabe did not help or even approach Mr. O'Keefe. She sat inside the cab of the vehicle and called 911 and reported that, quote, there's a man passed out in the snow. Despite knowing that her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, a police officer and first responder, was just feet away inside the house, Miss McCabe never went into the house or requested that Albert come down and help with Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, as Mr. O'Keefe lay dying in the snow, Miss McCabe stood and watched with no fear, urgency, or even concern for her family members residing mere feet away, which came up at trial. Also, no indication. The 911 call is also weird. The behavior of those in the house, also weird. They're going to bring all of that up in a civil case. That's why we're here. Into the investigation. The CPD were first on scene shortly after 6 a.m. At that time, there was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a vehicle. In fact, the evidence suggested just the opposite. His body did not show signs of trauma commonly associated with being struck by a car. There were no bone fractures or trauma to his lower body or torso or any other part of his body, as investigators would expect from a vehicle strike. Rather, his injuries were consistent with being physically assaulted to the face and head and attacked by a dog. For good reason, the ranking CPD officer on scene, Michael Lank, opined on a telephone call captured on a dash cam that Mr. O'Keefe looked like he had been in a fight. Moreover, the initial search conducted by Canton PD revealed that there was no vehicle debris on the lawn on 34 Fairview, let alone any debris at or near Mr. O'Keefe's body. Not a single piece of Terralite material was discovered on the lawn that morning or in the roadway, notwithstanding multiple searches and the use of a leaf blower to remove snow. Tellingly, despite the commotion outside, including more than a dozen first responders, 3 police cruisers, 2 ambulances, a ladder fire engine, a partridge in a pear tree, all with their emergency light flashing, at least 24 civilian vehicles. No, sorry, that doesn't say 24. At least 2 civilian vehicles. I said a partridge in a pear tree, and then my brain just kept running with the analogy. It was a lot of ruckus. Plus, Miss Reed's screams upon finding Mr. O'Keefe's body. No one from the Alberts house, including police officer Brian Albert, ever went outside to see what was happening, let alone help. And for me, that is one of the most unusual things in this case. There are lots of them. But not going outside to see what was happening has always struck me so wrong and so odd in this case that I just don't understand. It defies not gravity. Emily, no. We can't tangent into wicked. It defies logic that a police officer with that much going on outside his house wouldn't come out. It defies all of my personal life experience, all of my experience with first responders. And everyone was like, oh, we don't even know what the dog was doing. Nobody ever heard the dog barking. Jen said she went in and woke everybody up, and the dog, she didn't even see a dog. The dog didn't even know. The dog didn't respond to everything going on the lawn. It's weird to me. And they go on and allege that that was to avoid scrutiny from police investigators. Okay. Weird behavior for me. They go on to say Sergeant Lank was a longtime friend of the Alberts and the first law enforcement officer to enter the house. He spoke to the Alberts and the McCabes. Pursuant to their plan, the Alberts and the McCabes told Sergeant Lank that Mr. O'Keefe had never entered the house. The Alberts and McCabe's statements were false. They say Mr. O'Keefe arrived at and entered the house or garage where he was assaulted, attacked by the dog, and suffered a fatal injury to the back of his head. They go on to allege that despite Mr. O'Keefe's injuries being wholly inconsistent with the story the House defendants were now telling him, Sergeant Lank nor any other member of CPD searched the house to determine whether the occupants or anyone else were involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Nor did they request to search the occupants' cell phones, observe their bodies for evidence of a fight, or even secure the scene where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. They failed to do so because of a bias born out of friendship and loyalty in favor of the Alberts and McCabes. I think some of them probably weren't even aware of it. Like it was so ingrained, like, oh, they would never. I think that's not true for all of them. But for some of them, I think it was just like, they would never. They would help. They would do what they're supposed to do. It goes on to say, after Lank returned to CPD 3 hours after the discovery of Mr. O'Keefe's body, and more than 2 hours after being interviewed at the Alberts home that morning, Miss McCabe called Sergeant Lank because she recalled, it's in quotes, additional information. As part of a plan to implicate Miss Reed and remove suspicion from the House defendants, she falsely told Lank that Miss Reed told her twice that morning, "I hope I didn't hit him." More than a year later, at a separate proceeding, Miss McCabe changed her story on this topic yet again. In furtherance of the House defendant's plan, McCabe then falsely reported that Miss Reed outright confessed to hitting Mr. O'Keefe right after she found him in the snow. This is going to become a central point. However, I think that there is fairly consistent statements from Karen Reed that she said that. However, I'm also of the mind that Jen said that to her. And so she was thinking, did I say that? Did I hit him? Because Jen said I said. And she was taking on, because she had been drinking, she was taking on some of the things Jen said to her as her memories. So when she turned around and questioned it, she questioned saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And I don't know if she said it or if she believes she said it because of Jen McCabe. I don't know. Either way, I don't think it's a confession. And either way, I think if this goes to civil trial, it will be, if she said this organically without Jen saying it and her repeating what Jen said to her or questioning what Jen said to her, it's because she was asking questions. I think that will come up, but I don't think anyone takes, well, I can't say anyone. 2 juries didn't take that as a confession. I don't think a civil jury will take it as a confession. And I think as they're allowed to question it more, they will question, was she saying that because Jen said it to her? Because you can hear in the audio from the dash cams that Karen was 100% traumatized and beside herself and screaming with concern and horror. So if anybody's talking about shock and horror, as Jen McCabe said when she testified, it was Karen Reed who was responding with shock and horror, not Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe on the 911 call does not sound like she is in shock and or horror. There's a guy in the snow. You don't even give the guy a name. You're distancing yourself in the 911 call. You don't even say, I think it's my friend's boyfriend. He's a cop. We didn't know where he was last night. He was supposed to come over. Because you've got all those text messages on your phone, Jen. He's supposed to come in the house and he never got into the house. You don't tell 911 any of that? He was supposed to come in the house and then he didn't come over. And she didn't know where he was and he was missing and now he's here. This is my friend's boyfriend. No, nothing. Okay. The person who was freaking out was Karen. And next was Carrie. Why didn't Jen give all of the information to 911? I tend to find that when people are stressed, they overtalk, not undertalk. This is my life experience. So, moving forward, Proctor leads the MSP investigation despite conflicts. Michael Proctor was assigned as the case officer and had primary responsibility for the MSP investigation of Mr. O'Keefe's death. Sergeant Buchanan was Proctor's direct supervisor. Tully was the supervisory officer at Norfolk State Police Detective Unit and thus supervised both Buchanan and Proctor. In their roles, Buchanan and Tully both knew at all times exactly the extent of Proctor's misconduct. Now we're getting into who knew what when. And they did get investigated for failure to supervise. They didn't get in a lot of trouble, but they did get investigated. From the beginning, Proctor should never have been assigned as an investigating officer, let alone the lead investigator. He grew up and resides in Canton, is a good friend of the Alberts, and had known the family for years. Proctor and Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, had each other's cell phone numbers. In fact, just days before Mr. O'Keefe's death, Proctor communicated with Julie about babysitting Proctor's minor child. Proctor's sister Courtney was a close friend of Julie. In fact, Proctor's own mother referred to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. The existence of these relationships was intentionally suppressed by Proctor and other members of MSP, including Buchanan and Tully. I don't know how much Buchanan and Tully knew. I guess we'll see as we go. But Proctor knew. Proctor 100% knew. But they're saying that it was suppressed by Buchanan and Tully to ensure that all the House defendants were protected and that Miss Reed's right to a fair investigation and trial were undermined. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully engage in a corrupt and biased investigation by not investigating inside the House. You know what, chat? We got a long way to go. It's time to use the stand desk. It's going to be that kind of morning. My hip is killing me. I'm hoping that standing up will do better because sitting is not doing it. So up we go on the up desk. I'm very excited to upsy daisies with y'all. That was kind of smooth. I'm kind of happy about how that went. Let's go. I'll take all the applause. Okay. Chair move. We got to move the chair. We got to stand a little bit. I think it's just going to be easier. But up desk goes up. All right. There we go. Now we can stand and wiggle. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully engaged in a corrupt and biased investigation by not investigating inside the House and interviewing House defendants as friends rather than sussies. I'm sorry, it says suspects. The virtual juror said, EDB, have you looked at an anti-fatigue mat? I have one and I love it. I had a stand desk. I'm actually going to grab it because it's under my desk on that side. I actually, I am short. I mean, I think I'm probably average height, but I played water polo, so I have a complex about it because I am shorter than the average water polo player. I'm definitely shorter than Candace Luann, who is very tall. I'm also shorter than Emily Simpson from Real Housewives of Orange County, among others. But taller than most at 5'7". I am a short water polo player, that's for sure. So, yes, I have an anti-fatigue mat. I love it. So, I am almost 5'7". It feels short to me. It's all relative. I'm shorter than Nishay. It feels short to me. Look, I played water polo. Being under 5'10" was a detriment. For all of you that are like, I'm 5'2", I know. It's average. My brother's like 6'5". Emily Simpson is tall, for sure. So is Countess Luann. There are some of the housewives that are very tall. Heather Dubrow, also quite tall. A lot of them, though, in the 5'1", 5'2" category, and then they wear heels. Just very petite. All right. Are we ready to continue with the biased investigation? Yes. Yes. I love that you guys are like 5'7" is not short. Look, it's perspective. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and the MSP never searched for DNA evidence inside the house. Never looked for rigid surfaces that could have caused the gash on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head. Never inspected the house defendants for bruises or cuts. I mean, never even photographed them. If they had them come in to do video interviews, at least it would have been recorded. This allowed potential evidence to be destroyed, disposed of, removed, or simply become unrecoverable. Right. If anybody's hands had bruises, you're never going to get it back again because the time has passed. So they say Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully's interviews of the House defendants were also outside of normal protocol. They were interviewed either at their home, their family member's home, or their lawyer's home, in the case of Brian Higgins. What? They interviewed Higgins at his lawyer's home or in their lawyer's office in the case of Brian Jr. and Caitlin Albert. They should have had them all come to the station and be interviewed, even if their lawyer went with them, or at their place of employment or over the phone. These interviews were each untimely, unrecorded, and fundamentally designed to protect the House defendants, and the House defendants took full advantage of it. They go on to say, specifically, Jen McCabe became the point person for the House defendants in providing their false narrative to investigators. She managed and communicated details about the House defendants' message and investigation itself, including visiting proctors and other investigators' private residences, mapping out timelines and coordinating statements with other witnesses, leading group text message chains that were later particularly deleted, and planning private meetings at all hours of the day and night. Indeed, these were never acts of an innocent witness seeking to help an investigation concerning the death of an alleged friend. Rather, they were predicate acts of a conspiracy among a group of people with the shared goal of deflecting their criminal exposure onto someone else. The remaining group texts that were not deleted or that were recovered later revealed some of their planning. For instance, do tell. For instance, on the evening of January 29th, Jennifer McCabe texted with her sister Nicole Albert and Carrie Roberts, who was present when Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, quote, talked to the cops and kept it simple. Of course, there would be no reason to report back to the defendants and Roberts about, quote, keeping it simple, unless what really happened was more complicated. Proctor, Buchanan, and the MSP never sought these communications. Rather, they were obtained by Karen Reed's defense attorneys' repeated motions to compel access to data on Miss McCabe's iPhone. Later in group text with Jen McCabe, Brian and Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe suggested having Chris Albert publicize their crafted story to a reporter, saying, quote, ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went in the house. As an endorsement of the plan, Brian Albert responded, exactly. Tell them the guy never came in the house. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that at trial. I was stunned. Importantly, the text message from the defendant's house phones, or the House defendant's phones, that were ultimately recovered and provided a window into their conspiracy and misconduct, as well as MSP's unlawful investigation, were not the product of CPD or MSP's investigative work. Rather, it was the FBI. Rather, based on media reports raising serious questions about MSP's investigation and the House defendant's role in Mr. O'Keefe's death, another, quote, separate law enforcement agency began its own subsequent investigation. God, I want to know why. If at the end of all of this, I really just hope there's a lot of things I hope. One of the things I hope is a solid answer for what triggered the FBI investigation. That investigation, federal, and not MSP's, resulted in obtaining the House defendants' phones, taking statements from the House defendants, and conducting a, quote, separate proceeding.
The FBI!
The federal grand jury. All of which MSP refused to do itself. Indeed, the evidence procured by the separate law enforcement agency's investigation demonstrates the House defendants' conspiracy and unlawful conduct. They didn't charge anyone yet, though, but the standard is different for criminal and civil. Keep that in mind. Proctor and Buchanan initially interviewed the McCabes and Brian Albert on January 29th at the McCabes' home listed, at which time they again falsely stated that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' home. Buchanan and Proctor did not interview Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins until February 3rd, 2022, and did not interview Chris and Julie Albert until February 10th, nearly 2 weeks after Mr. O'Keefe's death, and more than a week after Reed was first arrested and charged. Or, yes, it doesn't say first, but it is. Before both interviews, the McCabes and Alberts coordinated their stories, as evidenced in group texts. Oh boy. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully likewise failed to conduct a meaningful investigation into Higgins' involvement. When Proctor and Buchanan interviewed Higgins on February 3rd, Higgins presented the troopers with a select set of self-curated texts between himself and Reed. They learned that Higgins and Reed had been exchanging flirtatious texts and that Higgins reported at least one instance in which Miss Reed and Higgins had kissed while at Mr. O'Keefe's house merely weeks before his death. I don't know if I can sit through those texts being read in court again. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I can deal with the Higgins Reed texts part 3. I don't know if I can do it. Oh God, they're so bad. Rather than I'm going to start that sentence again because the words just escape my mind because they're so terrible. Rather than pursuing Higgins as a possible suspect, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully neglected to investigate any further. I mean, of everything they could have investigated, the house is clearly obvious, but Higgins is also pretty obvious. Like, he's flirting back and forth with Karen Reed. Karen's at the bar with John. And then Higgins is like, what's he say? Welp? Well? He's like, what's going on, Karen? What up? I thought we were gonna, what's going down? I thought we were gonna head down the Cape. And no further investigation at all. After the cringiest texts ever. He goes on to say they never interviewed Higgins again, even after surveillance video revealed Higgins was suspiciously hiding his face in the halls and the parking lot of CPD at 1:30 a.m. January 29th. Yeah, and where the fuck were those videos for years? Can someone tell me? Where the fuck are those videos for years? Where were they? Honestly, I was kind of shocked that videos resurfaced at all. Truly. But where were they? We didn't see those till trial 2. The video contradicts Higgins' statements about his actions that night. However, not only did Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and MSP not investigate what Higgins was doing or what was in the bag, but they went so far as to hide this video from Karen Reed and her criminal defense attorneys for years. Reed's defense did not receive these videos until after Reed stood trial for the first time, and even after the FBI investigation revealed late-night phone calls between Albert and Higgins. MSP failed to pursue either witness or seek a full forensic extraction of Higgins' phone or a log from his cell provider. When it was revealed that Reed's defense team requested the preservation of Brian Albert's and Higgins' phone in order to forensically image them, this request was allowed by the court. Both men got rid of their phones. Huh! So weird. So weird. Just.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
This didn't come up in the criminal trial the way it will come up in the civil trial. In the civil trial, the timing will come up. The defense was making these motions in court. The court was going to allow it. And poof, right before the court said you must preserve your phones, the phones are just gone. So weird. Like right before the court said yes, preserve them. They just gone. Oh no, new phone. When it was revealed that Miss Reed's defense, we got to that, they got rid of their phones within days of each other. Higgins went so far as to drive to a military base on Cape Cod, remove the SIM card from the phone, cut the SIM card with scissors that he had brought with him, and destroyed and disposed of the phone and the card in separate dumpsters, and then drove back home. Okay. The destruction of their phones eliminated potentially incriminating communications between them and was the direct result of Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully's intentional refusal to collect important investigative evidence that would have been exculpatory to Miss Reed. If they had done the investigation, that would have already been preserved. But they didn't. And the phones were rehomed right before the court ordered them saved. Dawn asked who tipped them off. The motions were publicly going on in court, so they knew that the motions were going on. So I think the timing of the destruction and the court order may actually be coincidental, but they knew the court order was coming because they had hearings on it. So they knew the court order was coming. I don't know if they knew the way the court was going to go, but most lawyers can look at what's being argued and say the court's probably going to do X or Y. And their lawyers are allowed to tell them that. So it was public. All of these hearings were public. The requests were public. The filings were public. And they had their own lawyers. So, getting rid of the phone. Annie asked in the chat, why get rid of it if not guilty? I have a lot of thoughts about that. We've talked about it in some other content, but I'll talk about it a little more at the end if we have time. I have a lot of thoughts about that. CEG, Kevin Albert, and Trooper Proctor, and the missing gun. The dude, where's my gun? I think that has a ton to do with it. So they didn't preserve the phones. They could have preserved the phones. They didn't preserve the phones. Everything got destroyed. So weird. Even after, this is interesting, even after learning about the destruction of both witnesses' phones, MSP investigators had other avenues they could use to pursue the evidence, such as cellular records or simply interviewing Brian and Brian. They intentionally ignored these avenues as well. Not only did Proctor fail to probe his friend's stories, he coordinated with them through his sister. Proctor spoke to Courtney multiple times a day. Seems like a lot while you're in the middle of a murder investigation. Proctor spoke to Courtney multiple times a day, and she was in close contact with and providing information to Julie Albert. Julie and Courtney called each other many times between February 1st and 2nd, and at least 67 times between February 1st and September 6th. For example, as he prepared to question Chris and Julie Albert February 10th, Proctor told his sister that the interview was not a big deal. Tell your friends it's no big deal. Don't be nervous. It's fine. We just have to do it to say that we did it. That's what he was thinking because he said it in his fucking interview. Courtney told Proctor that Julie had been nervous and wanted to give him a thank you gift after the interview. To avoid scrutiny, Proctor instructed Courtney to tell Julie to give a gift to his wife, Elizabeth, instead. Proctor shared investigative details with Courtney before they were public, and he got in trouble for that, by the way. In the same instance referenced above, when his sister informed him that Julie Albert had been, quote, so nervous before the interview, instead of investigating further, he shrugged it off, laughed, and asked, why? Of course he asked why. Of course he asked why. Why would they be nervous? We're all friends. Why do you have anything to worry about? I got you. Why would you be nervous? Because you're being interviewed by law enforcement? No. It's just us. We're all friends. Why would you be nervous? They go on to say Proctor knew exactly why Julie was nervous. He sought to reassure her by telling Courtney that it was fine, just a quick convo. Just a chit-chat. And then after the interview, Proctor spoke to Julie on his personal cell phone in an unreported conversation. Proctor never treated the Alberts as witnesses in a murder investigation. He treated them like family friends that they were. Like the family friends that they were. At one point leading up to some of the interviews, Miss McCabe asked Nicole Albert if she heard anything more about the investigation. Confident she would learn more from Julie Albert, again through Courtney, Nicole responded, "We'll get more info tomorrow. Don't want to text about it." Interesting, yeah? House defendants did not, quote, want to text about their activities and communications because they tried to hide and or lie about them. For instance, it was discovered in the second criminal trial that Miss McCabe had lied in her sworn testimony in the first trial about not visiting 34 Fairview with Carrie Roberts on January 30th on their way to Michael Lank's house. However, while they did not text about this meeting, McCabe's cell phone location data obtained later by Reed's defense attorneys revealed that she did, in fact, go to 34 Fairview just one day after O'Keefe's death and lied about it. The McCabes, Alberts, and Higgins all told the same false story to investigators in their interviews, and Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully accepted their coordinated statements without making efforts to corroborate their stories. Next heading. Rather than investigate their friends and brethren, Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, MSP, target Karen Reed. They go on to make that allegation again, saying that Proctor seized Reed's cell phone and SUV within 30 minutes of interviewing her on January 29th. He arrested her 72 hours later before reviewing any surveillance from the bars or ring camera footage, before interviewing exculpatory witnesses, and before the ME's conclusion of manner of death. It's fast for no eyewitnesses, real fast. Much to Proctor's surprise, through the wait,
The FBI!
investigation, his contemporaneous text messages were discovered. Remember back when former Trooper Proctor was trying to get his job back and he was going through all those hearings? It feels like 100 years ago. It wasn't. Remember that we found out in opening statements from Trooper Proctor's defense attorney that Proctor didn't know they existed until he showed up at the federal grand jury? That was one of my favorite reveals. There's been a lot of reveals in this case that I've been like, damn. But that reveal, I was like, oh shit. He showed up at the federal grand jury and they were like, hey, buddy. We have some questions for you about these text messages. Can you imagine him? Can you imagine how pale, from the tippy top of his head, how pale that man must have gone? You get to a federal grand jury. It's clear they're investigating, I think, my supposition. It's clear they're investigating your investigation. And you sit down as a witness at a federal grand jury and they're like, hey, got a few text messages we'd like to ask you about. Can you imagine? One day we'll hear more about this federal grand jury transcript and we will know more. And it's going to be him just being like, I think we're going to see more from the federal grand jury transcripts when this goes to trial, because we're going to have to, because they're alleging a cover-up. They are now the defendants, not the witnesses. You can't dig into witnesses at a criminal trial the same way you can get into defendants at a civil case. He's a defendant. If you lying at the federal grand jury, they're alleging a conspiracy. What you said at the federal grand jury, and not just you, what you said at the federal grand jury, what Jen McCabe said at the federal grand jury, all of it becomes more relevant. All of it. Literally, we have gotten to the full...
Mention it all. Mention it all.
Full mention it all. Because now it's all relevant, because they're alleging a conspiracy and a cover-up. So what did you say? Hey, Jen, when the FBI knocked at your door and wanted to have a chit-chat, why'd you call like 10 people? And then tell them you didn't. Who were you calling? Called the DA's office? Called Carrie? Who else did you call? What did you talk about? That all becomes much more relevant in a civil trial. This trial is going to be longer than the criminal trial. We're going to be here for fuck ever. And I'm sad. I don't care. We're going to do this forever. We're going to do this forever. So, at some point, people want answers. Helena, good to see you, said, I hope this trial is streamed. I mean, if it goes to trial, it will be. You know that Karen Reed's team is going to want this all to be public. And honestly, if the other side is all saying that this is all overwrought nonsense, they would want it streamed too. If they're claiming it's defamation, they would want it streamed too. There's always a way that things won't go to trial. I mean, there's always a way that things won't go to trial. I can't imagine at this point Karen Reed not wanting this to go to trial because she has nothing left to lose. The people who have something to lose are on the other side of the V on this one. She has nothing left to lose. She has everything in the world to gain. Nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose and nothing to hide. Full like Erica Jane. She has nothing to lose at this point. All the discovery in the world she can get and bring it all to light. So, yeah, she's going to want it to go to trial and she's going to want everyone to see it. Also, she'll probably have cameras following her while she does it. Because we know she's already signed at least a book deal and rights. So there will be more. Oh my goodness. Why is my phone doing things? That scared the crap out of me. Who is pinging my phone and why? I don't know. I can't. That was unusual. So I'm going to just try to make sure one of my family members is not using the ping to try to figure out what I'm doing. I'm streaming. Just go on YouTube and look. You can see that I'm streaming. Anyway, that was strange. All of you in the chat are saying it was the FBI. I mean, excuse me, Bruce, my friendly FBI agent or NSA agent or whoever. We want to know what started this investigation and why there weren't charges. So if you're just going to ping my phone, we want to know. Inquiring minds. All right. Much to Proctor's surprise, a delightful reveal nonetheless, much to Proctor's surprise, through the FBI investigation, and if you're listening in the background, it says, quote, separate law enforcement agency every single time. I'm just filling in the gaps with what we know it is. I'm just filling it in. So it doesn't say that in here. I'm just handling it for us. His contemporaneous text messages were discovered. Oh, he's had way more jump scares than that. Proctor's had more jump scares than my phone deep sea pinging me because he thought his iCloud was gone and it wasn't. Proctor's not done with the jump scare of his own messages. Among those messages, Proctor texted his high school friends the evening of January 29th. The day he began his investigation, he told them that MSP had already determined that the Alberts were not going to receive any shit. It says scrutiny, any shit about O'Keefe's death, even though MSP had not at that point visited the crime scene. Real weird, isn't it? Proctor told his friends that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a car and had not been in a fight, despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe had suffered no injuries consistent with a vehicle strike and did have injuries consistent with a fight and dog attack. Proctor rejected a friend's belief that Brian Albert, the homeowner of the property where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, would, quote, receive some shit, instead agreeing with another friend's assumption that you guys, MSP, are going to make it cut and dry since it involved cops. Proctor revealed that he had already decided he was going to put serious charges on Miss Reed and that she was, fucked. And that there was, quote, zero chance she skates. From the outset, Proctor was determined to pin it on the girl. I want to remind everyone, because in the trials, this got conflated. This last sentence from the outset, Proctor was determined to pin it on the girl, is their interpretation of what Proctor was doing. Proctor did not say that in text messages. This is their belief of motive behind it. What Proctor did text was the gonna put serious charges, zero chance she skates, she's fucked. All of that was said in text. The desire to quote unquote pin it on the girl is their interpretation of the texts. Hopefully that clears that up. It was not texted, but the rest of it was. That's why it is not in quotes and the rest is in direct quotes. It's the assumption of motive. They go on to say Proctor's supervisors were aware of his bias and conflicted relationships in the investigation. They did not have to guess. Proctor told them. He told them he knew the Alberts. Text messages from Proctor to Buchanan and others show that Proctor had decided to focus suspicion on Reed to the exclusion of everyone else. He told the troopers that Reed was Arsler and that he was searching her phone for nudes. I have my own interpretation of that when he's saying no nudes yet. I don't think that's what he was searching for. I think he just assumed he would find them, but it is potato at this point. In the text chain, Buchanan liked Proctor's text describing Miss Reed thusly. Buchanan received Proctor's text and never reprimanded Proctor or addressed the improper bias. He got in trouble for that. It goes on to say because he was determined to put serious charges on Miss Reed, Proctor ignored the fact that the Commonwealth's ME could not conclude that O'Keefe's death was a homicide, determining instead that the manner of his death could not be determined. The medical examiner also refused to conclude that O'Keefe died as a result of being struck by a vehicle, and later testified at trial that his injuries were not consistent with a car strike. Proctor later admitted that in his entire career, he had never seen a homicide investigation where the ME could not determine manner of death. Interesting, isn't it? But he remained undeterred in his quest to charge Miss Reed. As he later admitted, the medical examiner's refusal to rule the death a homicide did not matter to him, quote, because either way, Miss Reed was going to be charged. I wonder where that came from. I'm real curious about that. He's like, I don't care. I don't care. You know, most of the time you wait for the ME's determination, but no, he didn't care. Proctor and Buchanan plant certain evidence and make false statements in court and other legal documents to frame Karen Reed. Proctor made this investigation, quote, cut and dry by manufacturing a case against Reed. A first crucial step was to ensure that the crime scene and evidence was not secured. This was in violation of MSP policy and well-established best practices for critical incident investigations. Yeah. It says, specifically, the MSP Crime Lab requires proper processing of evidence at a major crime scene, including crime scene photography and evidence processing and recovery of latent fingerprint, footwear, and tire track evidence. Neither the MSP troopers involved nor the CPD officers on scene secured the Alberts home or the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found. The MSP did not take any photographs of the house, including any part of the yard where Mr. O'Keefe was found, until February 1st. Yep. More than 3 full days later. No photographs are ever taken of the inside of the garage at 34 Fairview. The intentional departure from established protocols permitted Proctor and Buchanan to generate false, incriminating evidence against Reed. And we saw all of this at trial. By approximately 2:30 p.m., January 29th, before he had even met or interviewed Reed or seen her Lexus SUV, Proctor had already ordered seizure of the vehicle at her parents' home in Dighton. By 4:17 p.m., the vehicle was in MSP physical possession. The vehicle was towed to CPD Sallyport. The way I am so mad that there are not more photos of Karen Reed's vehicle when they towed it, it's wild. The vehicle was towed to the CPD Sallyport, even though the MSP had at least 2 closer barracks and Massachusetts was in the middle of a historic nor'easter. Proctor knew he had more leeway to manipulate evidence regarding the SUV at CPD than at MSP's facilities. They're going to argue that it was because of heating. That's what they've said in the past. We'll see. They go to say before the vehicle arrived at the garage, Miss Reed's Lexus taillight had a minor crack but was intact. The crack occurred while Miss Reed backed into Mr. O'Keefe's car at 5 a.m. that morning as she was leaving to search for him. That incident was captured on video. They go on to say Buchanan and Proctor followed the vehicle from Dighton and arrived at CPD at 5:35, just moments after the tow truck with the Lexus. At some point after the vehicle arrived in the Sallyport, the right rear taillight was almost entirely destroyed. Video taken from different angles at the Sallyport show Buchanan, Proctor, and Berkowitz and other individuals near the taillight. Notably, no video captures the taillight's appearance at the precise time it arrives in the Sallyport. Right? The available surveillance video from the Sallyport, as well as CPD access card swipe logs obtained by separate law enforcement agency. I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that the swipe logs were also done by the feds. I'm not surprised, but I don't think I knew that. The card access log was obtained by the feds and revealed seemingly unfettered access to the Sally Port by a myriad of individuals throughout the evening of January 29th, including just before and just after 5:30. And who was watching all the security cameras at that time? Wasn't it Deaver? It goes on to say, or it goes on to allege, that one or more of them destroyed the taillight, secretly took pieces of it in their possession, and planted some of the pieces at various places at 34 Fairview and on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Knowing that there were video cameras both inside and outside the Sally Port, Proctor and Buchanan worked together to obscure their role in manipulating the right rear taillight and then ultimately to present false evidence at the first criminal trial. Specifically, they say Proctor and Buchanan, Proctor detected Buchanan to secure video footage from the surveillance cameras located inside and outside the Sally Port, which he did. They say the videos were manipulated in two significant ways. First, a critical 42-minute portion was deleted from the footage from the Sally Port front wall camera, the portion from 5:08 p.m. to 5:50 p.m., which included the exact time Reed's Lexus arrived in the garage. This footage would have shown that the taillight was intact. They say second, the footage from the Sally Port back wall camera was inverted, which made the right side of Reed's vehicle appear to be the left side and vice versa. Another camera, main driveway side exterior, captured the back end of the Lexus as it arrived at CPD, but was too grainy to decipher the condition of the passenger taillight. I'm going to sneeze. 30 seconds. Oh, I talked about it and then it passed. Okay, we'll see. If it comes back, I'll let you know. They go on to say the videos from inside and outside the Sally Port at Proctor's request for Buchanan to obtain it was intentionally hidden from Karen Reed and her defense attorneys for more than 2 years. It magically appeared during the first trial. It was like, oh, look, now there's a video. And then there was more during the second video. Oh, look. G Mommy asked, is 42 minutes deleted? Is that new? No, it came up during trial. There were arguments over it. It was, but this is motion activated. And so it wasn't deleted. There was no video because motion didn't trigger it. It was that kind of argument going on. We'll hear more about it, I'm sure. Just not at the moment. Because they're alleging it was deleted. The thing is, the defense never got all the metadata, so it becomes very hard to prove. So they go on to say that the videos were intentionally hidden to avoid scrutiny. The video was then sprung on them immediately before and during the first criminal trial. One driveway camera's footage was not revealed to the defense until just prior to the start of the second trial. I was flabbergasted that there was still more before the second trial. It says, in fact, Buchanan presented one part of the video during his direct testimony under questioning from ADA Lally. Buchanan narrated the video to the jury, correctly identifying Proctor was at the rear of the vehicle, but claimed that he never approached the rear taillight area of the vehicle. That testimony, however, was entirely false. As he well knew, the video that Buchanan authenticated as fair and accurate was neither fair nor accurate because it was inverted. Yeah, he never said it was inverted. Y'all clocked it in the chat. You're like, that looks weird. I know. Y'all never, ever fail. And he didn't talk about it until cross-examination. It was wild. So they go on to allege that they, Buchanan, Proctor et al., hoped this would allow Buchanan to lie about the issue at trial without detection. With this video and Buchanan's false testimony, the MSP, Proctor, and Buchanan attempted to mislead the jury in order to conceal the tampering with and planting of taillight material. Proctor and Buchanan also took taillight pieces from the Sally Port, brought them back to 34 Fairview to plant them in the location where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, and then verified or falsified various documents in an attempt to hide the conduct. in warrant applications to the Stoughton District Court and Norfolk Superior Court for searches of Google's electronic records, ring videos, Miss Reed's phone, vehicle, cell tower records, and other sources of information, Proctor swore he seized Reed's vehicles from her parents' home at 5:30 p.m. and had the vehicle towed to CPD after that. Reports shared by the Dighton Police Department revealed that the Lexus was towed from Dighton at 4:17 p.m. Proctor's assertion that he seized the vehicle at 5:30 was intentionally false to hide the fact that he was in possession of the car for 73 minutes longer than indicated on his sworn affidavits. It's a big deal. It's going to be a big deal here because Proctor's going to try to say, this was a mistake, this was a mistake, this was a mistake. How many? How many coincidences before a jury's like, nah. They go on to say Proctor maintained that false narrative because it would hide the exact time frame he had the opportunity to remove pieces of the taillight from Reed's vehicle and bring them back to the house so that he could later claim the pieces had been there since approximately 12:30 a.m. on January 29th. However, unbeknownst to him, driveway video from the Reed residence in Dighton and a report written by Dighton police officer revealed Proctor's lie and revealed that the true and accurate time that the Lexus came into MSP's possession. Yep. Look at that. Karen Reed's parents' house. Proctor also deposited the SUV taillight pieces that he and others removed from the vehicle in the Sally Port on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Proctor retrieved O'Keefe's clothing from the hospital, from the floor of the hospital where he was pronounced. Instead of securing the clothes in a sealed container or bag, as protocol requires, Proctor and Buchanan drove them around in his car all day and then placed them in the Norfolk County District Attorney's office for at least 6 days. Yeah, they laid them out to dry them, right? Proctor and Buchanan failed to create a log to document. We know all about Proctor's log or lack of log. Failed to create a log and of the chain of custody. I read that sentence terribly, but you know what we mean. They go, therefore, by design, there's no record of when or how many times and under what circumstances Proctor and Buchanan touched, manipulated, handled, or otherwise tampered with the clothing. They go on to say that this goes against protocol. We know. They talk about this going against all of MSP's policies and that there's no chain of custody. We know. They allege that Proctor planted pieces of taillights on the bumper of Reed's SUV while it was in possession of the CPD Sally Port. Remember, it wasn't processed until February 1st. They go on to say Proctor planted this evidence to make it look like those shards originated from a cocktail glass that Mr. O'Keefe was holding when he exited the Waterfall bar. Evidently, Proctor did not plan on Karen Reed's defense attorneys insisting on forensic testing on the glass, which showed that they did not match the cocktail glass in John O'Keefe's possession. In fact, the 5 pieces originated from multiple different sources. Isn't that weird? We saw that at trial 2. And I think in trial 2, they did a much better job of tying that information together than they did in trial 1. I think having more time with that helped. And I think the defense really streamlined that in trial 2. They're going to get into other aspects of the conflicted and corrupted investigation. They say that despite evidence that Brian Albert may have had video surveillance at the house, nobody obtained it, nobody tried to obtain it, that Proctor and MSP failed to track down other important witnesses like Brian Laughlin, the snowplow driver, Brian Lucky Laughlin. They talk about Laughlin's testimony. We've seen that. They talk about the Ford Edge. We saw that at trial. They talk about not finding witness Julie Nagel or talking to her until way later. They say that when Reed's attorneys filed a motion to obtain Proctor's notes, his handwritten memorialization of the Julie Nagel interview mirrored almost exactly what was typed up in his police report, except for the words Colin Albert. Knowing who's there seems important, right? Knowing who's at the house matters. Proctor's interactions with Kevin Albert during the investigation also demonstrate his close relationship with the Albert family, as well as his propensity for violating MSP rules and Massachusetts criminal laws. They just like threw that in there. They're just like, zing. Repeatedly, Proctor used his personal cell phone to speak with Kevin, a CPD officer, instead of official channels. Gee, I wonder why. Oh, dude, where's my gun? Here it is again. Here it is again. Where's my gun? In the middle of Proctor's investigation in the summer of 2022, it was discovered that Proctor and Kevin Albert were out drinking alcohol and driving in Proctor's cruiser on Cape Cod. At the end of the night, Kevin Albert forgot to bring home his gun and badge and left them in Proctor's cruiser. Their drinking and driving in Proctor's MSP vehicle violated MSP policies as well as criminal laws. Moreover, because of their close relationship, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully worked together with CPD in hiding certain videos from Karen Reed's criminal defense team. The gun. It's one of the things that got Proctor fired. Proctor's like, nobody gets fired over text messages. You're not getting fired over text messages. But you are drinking and driving on the job while armed in your police cruiser with another officer who's also on duty, who was so out of his mind that he forgot his gun and his badge and was texting you the next day that he had like the worst hangover ever. Bro, what?
Bruh.
It's a full fuckery. Oh, but they don't all know each other. They don't all know each other. They're not all friends. No, you just get drunk on duty with some rando that you don't know because you're sure it's going to be fine. No. They go on to talk about a coordination to keep videos from Karen Reed. They say that they demonstrated that Higgins' statements about his post-house party activities the night of Mr. O'Keefe's death were not accurate. Upon information and belief, so this is we believe, we're speculating, but we don't know, but we're speculating. Upon information and belief, CPD knew it had this evidence and worked with MSP to keep it from Miss Reed. Additionally, upon information and belief, CPD set its quote-unquote auto-delete function from saving certain surveillance videos from the Sally Port to 30 days, therefore assuring the immediate destruction of likely additional exculpatory evidence. We saw all of that when we were going through those arguments at trial. The indictments, the trial, the aftermath. The indictments, trial, aftermath. I will never stop. We know all of this quite well. We have been through it repeatedly. They talk about the two trials. They talk about the arrest. They talk about the bond she was required to set. They talk about the acquittal. Then they go on to talk about the impact because there is an IIED claim here. So they're now talking about the impact to Karen Reed to support her claims. Beginning in January 2022, the defendant's actions have had profound effect on Ms. Reed. She lost her employment and income. She lost her professorship. She lost her private health insurance. She lost her car and her driver's license. She lost her house. Her reputation, both personally and professionally, was utterly destroyed. She incurred multiple millions of dollars in debt for legal fees and additional millions in experts' fees and costs. In addition, after being arrested twice, jailed twice, and tried twice, she has suffered years of intense stress and emotional harm, worried that she would be imprisoned for the rest of her natural life for a crime she did not commit. This goes to those claims. Remember, this is a civil case. The way that civil makes things right is most often money. Miss Reed suffers from both Crohn's disease and MS, multiple sclerosis. As documented under seal with the criminal court, Reed has undergone tens of surgeries to manage her illness prior to January 29, 2022, and endured blood infusions just months before O'Keefe's death. In the aftermath of the charges to arrest and during both trials, Reed has suffered well-documented exacerbation of her symptoms amid the stress, anxiety, and emotion and physical impacts of being wrongly accused of murder. Stress and MS are not a good combo. While fighting for her freedom against a corrupt prosecution, Reed underwent dozens and dozens of documented medical procedures and treatments to attempt to address her health issues. And this all amid losing her job and her health insurance, right? They say the defendants concocted a plan, executed a plan, and framed an innocent woman and are now responsible for these extraordinary damages that Miss Reed has suffered at their hands. They go on to say MSP investigates and punishes Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully for their misconduct during the investigation. We have covered that. Look at what time it is. Ooh. Chris, I am going to be late. We have a meeting. I'm going to be late for meeting. I apologize. I'm just looking at the time. How did it get so late? We are going to continue because we still have pages and pages to go. Don't worry, we're streaming again tomorrow. We have stuff to cover in the Walsh case tomorrow, and we have more to cover of this tomorrow too. But we're going to finish this complaint. I will pop onto my meeting a little late. It'll be fine. MSP investigates and punishes Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully for their misconduct. Proctor wrote more than 1/3 of the police reports in this case, testified at the state grand jury 3 times, and the federal grand jury. Interviewed every member of the Albert and McCabe families. Had possession at least until March 14th, 2022, of all of John O'Keefe's clothing and all of the taillight pieces found broken from the housing. Processed Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse the day after Miss Reed was arraigned and had access to all the ring videos, video surveillance, all of it, receipts, timeline, screenshots. Proctor was relieved of duty and transferred out of the detective unit at Norfolk on January 7th, 2024, days after the conclusion of Reed's first trial. He was terminated from MSP March 19th, 2025. Upon release from the district attorney of more implicating text messages from Proctor's phone, on October 18th, 2025, Proctor officially ended his appeal with civil service. Yup. Those texts dropped and he was like, I'm out. It wasn't just that the text dropped. It's the text dropped and the union was like, goodbye. We will have nothing to do with you. On September 23rd, 2024, MSP Internal Affairs investigation found Buchanan failed to perform his supervisory duties. On July 7th, 2025, he was transferred out of the Norfolk DA's investigative unit and reassigned to an administrative role in another division. Yeah, he was put in timeout. I think he also lost vacation days. On October 18th, 2024, Tully was disciplined and reassigned and stripped of his detective designation. Tully was given special dispensation by Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey to continue detective work on the Reed case despite his demotion because of his behavior on this case. That's wild. I had forgotten about that. That's wild. He was demoted and the DA was like, we good. Keep working on the case. Upon information and belief, MSP troopers DeChico, Kowalski, no, Emily, that's Penguins of Madagascar. Kowalski, whatever. Jeffrey were also disciplined for their misconduct associated with MSP's investigation of Reed. Counts. Now we're getting into what they are suing for. Footnote 4. After making presentment pursuant to rules, Reed will add counts against A, MSP for negligent training, supervision, and retention of MSP troopers, including Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully, and B, the town of Canton for negligent oversight. So we know that those are the two different charges that are going to be brought, or causes of action, that are going to be brought against the government entities. So a count against MSP for negligent training and supervision, and a count against Canton for negligent oversight of the investigation. Those two. Count 1. malicious prosecution under the Fourth Amendment against Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully. CEG, everything we just read. All of it. Remember, to bring malicious prosecution, you have to first win. Karen Reed won. A lot of you at the end of this were like, where is the malicious prosecution? There it is. Count 1. Malicious prosecution. Can you see why Karen Reed's attorneys are going to argue that this is a defense to the wrongful death case? They're going to argue, look, jury, this wasn't wrongful death. This was a malicious prosecution. I did not cause this death. They did. And they didn't investigate. Or we don't know who did because they didn't investigate. Pick one. Or both, because it's civil. So there's the malicious prosecution cause of action, and then they list out why. We just saw the list of why. Literally all the things we just talked about are why. Failure to do like everything. So that's the malicious prosecution. I will link this below if you want to read through all of it. It's what is listed above, but I will link it after my meeting, after stream. Same. I think all of you are pretty well and familiar with why they are alleging malicious prosecution here. Count 2. Supervisor liability against Buchanan and Tully. Hey, boys. What you doing? Shouldn't you tell Proctor that this isn't okay? Instead of like thumbs upping the text. And both of them got in trouble for this already with the IA investigations. So imagine sitting on a jury and having them be like, oh, internal affairs already said that this was a problem. So, yeah, internal affairs already said. The jury will know that. Failure to supervise, including Buchanan and Tully could have taken easily available steps to avoid a constitutional defect malicious prosecution of Miss Reed, or a constitutionally deficient malicious prosecution of Miss Reed. Those measures include, but are not limited to, 1, replacing Proctor with an unbiased investigator who had no personal relationship with anyone involved. 2, safeguarding the crime scene and the physical evidence, including John O'Keefe's clothing, 47 pieces of tail lamp material to prevent anyone from planning, manufacturing, or manipulating evidence. 3, initiating timely searches at the Alberts house. 4, quickly seizing the cell phones of the witnesses to avoid manipulation and destruction. And they're saying by not doing that, they failed in their duties. Count 3, conspiracy to deprive Reed of her Fourth Amendment rights. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins. All of them conspiring together for her to take the fall. And knowing it was false and continuing to go forward with it. So everybody together in a conspiracy to, as the defense character, or as Reed's defense attorneys, well, now civil plaintiff's attorneys characterize, to pin it on the girl. That's that. And then they talk about her loss of employment, her reputational damages, distress, etc. Count 4, Massachusetts Civil Rights Act against Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins. So civil rights violations at all, similar to what you would see in like a 1982 claim, federal civil rights, similar. Count 5, common law malicious prosecution against Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins. I want to look at that because some of them are civilians. I don't know if common law malicious prosecution extends. I imagine they researched that, so I'm going to go with what they said. I haven't seen it done. It doesn't mean it can't be. So common law malicious prosecution, I imagine the statutory one requires you be law enforcement or a prosecutor, but I'm really interested in taking a look at this. Robin's Nest said, I'm trying to find the first trial on your channel. Where is it? It's in a playlist. It's called Trial 1. So it's in a playlist. There are numerous playlists. Just search in the playlist and you'll find it. So that is common law malicious prosecution against everybody. IIED, intentional infliction of emotional distress against everybody. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins. All. They did this. It was intentional. It caused distress. Obviously, it caused severe emotional and physical distress. And Reed suffered emotional and physical injury related to that. Count 7, civil conspiracy. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins conspired together, had an agreement, and saying as part of their concerted effort and among their many other misrepresentations, the Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins agreed with each other to tell investigators that John O'Keefe never entered the house, that they did not see him in the house that night, and that Reed made inculpatory statements. Didn't go in the house. Never came in the house. I hit him. Those three things. And that when they made those statements, they knew that they were false. And then they go through the broken glass and the allegations that they made up above. They reallege here, including the how's long Google search and the rest of it. Those are all 7 claims. Demand for a jury trial, prayer for relief. Find them all liable. So the prayer for relief is enter judgment in her favor against each relevant defendant on each count, award damages in an amount to be calculated at trial along with pre- and post-trial judgment, interest, and expenses. Reasonable attorney's fees incurred in connection with this litigation. If you sit on this jury, would you be curious about if you could give her attorney's fees for all the trials? And that might fall under such other relief, such other equitable relief. Attorney's fees, not just for this, but for everything. I am not surprised this is done in connection with Seligson, the civil attorney, and Jackson, who with his firm is still on this, because there's going to be a lot of lawyers involved, and they're involved in the civil wrongful death. So at the end of the day, where are we at? Well, Karen Reed has sued everybody. She has sued. Let's go through the list real quick one more time. She has sued Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, the Alberts, the McCabes, and Higgins. Strangely, the Alberts, the McCabes, and Higgins all have the same lawyer. I don't think that'll last. I think it's a terrible idea. She also has indicated that after the red tape that you have to go through when suing a government entity is done, that she will also be bringing suit against Massachusetts State Police and Canton. So we will see 2 more defendants added into this and 2 more causes of action or claims added to them. There are 7 claims here that we just went over. This is what they are arguing over in the wrongful death case. Will this case be added to the wrongful death case? As I said earlier, that can happen in 2 ways. Either they get consolidated, which means everything goes to trial together. One trial. It all goes to trial together. Or they get related, which can mean that you can overlap the evidence, you can overlap the discovery. And some of you asked in the chat, could we see 2 juries? Possible. It's possible that they could bring in dual juries and have a jury for this case and a jury for the wrongful death case and have 2 juries. I don't know what courthouse they would facilitate that in, but it is possible to have 2 juries sit in a case and then have somebody get up and leave during a part that's not for that jury. They could do that. So, Gemini asked, do cities have insurance in these types of suits? Sometimes. Sometimes they do. So it just depends. Apple Sliver asked, EDB, is there evidence testimony from the criminal trial that would be inadmissible in the civil procedure? Oh, we are too far down the road for that. I would have to go piece by piece. Have you ever seen a dual jury trial? Yeah, it's not uncommon when you have multiple defendants. It does happen. But you can have one jury do it. It just depends on what they do. Because I think in civil, I've seen it happen in criminal more. It would take me a minute to think of a civil case where I'd seen it happen. I've seen it happen in criminal more. But in civil, the rules of evidence are different. And you might see Well, you're going to see things that overlap so much because so many of these causes of action are going to overlap. The things in this civil complaint from Karen Reed are essentially the things she's arguing in her defense on the wrongful death, right? So it is a shift between the two of them and a crossover between the two of them. So you might not need two juries, but that is going to be fought over in the wrongful death case. And I imagine that the O'Keefe family is going to say, you know what we don't want? What we don't want is we don't want all of this in the wrongful death case because it's going to make everything take a lot longer and be much more complicated. But for judicial economy, you're going to see Karen Reed's team arguing, but this is our defense. This is our entire defense. And because this is our entire defense, we need to have it presented. And so if it's both being presented, shouldn't they just all decide it at once instead of having it happen at two trials? Wouldn't it make sense just to do it all with one jury together? And we're going to see those arguments come up. That case is back in court on Friday, so we'll see. We also, I am close on time. I'm going to look at the questions and super chats real quickly, chat. I have a meeting in 3 minutes about merch, which is very important because we have much going on and we have some new stuff for you. And I want to make sure it gets into your hands quickly and well. And so I want to make sure that I do not miss our merch meeting. Also, I went to move this chair and I moved it into the wrong place because I was like doing the halvesy thing. Hold on. Move chair. All right. Chair has moved. Mostly moved. It doesn't really matter. There's nowhere really to put the chair. But we have to have that meeting regarding merch because we have stuff for y'all. Rebecca wants to know, said, do you think this will settle out of court? It's going to be real hard as to the individuals, the city entities, perhaps. Perhaps. So, yeah, maybe. But that's going to be a lot. The thing all of you asked me about early on in stream, yes, I have seen all of the rumblings that Judge Cannoni ordered the release of the sidebars this morning. That doesn't mean we are going to have them today. It's going to take time for those all to get typed up, but I will keep in mind the fact that the sidebars are coming. I don't know if we'll get that this week. I don't know if we'll get to it this week. We have a lot to talk about in the Brian Walsh case tomorrow. And the civil case is back in court Friday. So we have lots and lots. We will see on the side with TLC almost 5 years. I know we have some membership updates coming from you guys too. We do. We absolutely do. And I'm very excited about it. I'll see if I can get that done today. So we will see what we can get done. I love the Sarah JD said black on black hoodies. I'm just here for the fuckery. Funny you say black on black. We will have some. I am wearing some black on black today, but my lights are turned down so you can't see it very well, which is perfect. We have some black on black stuff. Don't worry. I want to make sure you guys have it. I need the Stanley version cup back in stock. Yours doesn't spill. I know. Isn't it great? It's going to be a minute on these. We do not have them in this next launch. We sold out of the purple everywhere. We do have some drinkware. Don't worry. We do have some drinkware. Members only for the Karen Reed sidebars. We will do those publicly. We will do some members only of what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. My brain has still not caught up. Like I am so far behind on literally everything, but it's fine. But I'm glad the sidebars are happening. They should be. It's ridiculous it's taken so long. I mean, Karen Reed should also have her car back. It's just wild. It took so long. I'm going to try to get it right. Deidre, I hope I did that correctly. Yay, I get to spend my birthday with EDB. Happy birthday. Lorraine asked, when is the new food court? We just did food court a few weeks ago. It's up. So it's going to be a minute before we do another food court because we have to catch up on criminal court. We do. Veronica said, on a Caribbean cruise for my honeymoon. Veronica, go be on your honeymoon. Enjoy. Roxy asked, is today the members only chat? No, I need to let my voice recover a little bit more. I don't think I can do much more talking today. Bravocon. J. Michael, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. I appreciate it. Finn asked in the chat, how is it possible for them to share a lawyer? Isn't there a possible conflict? There is so much possible conflict. I think we will see them separate out and have individual lawyers. It's a huge concern. I imagine the court, now that they have been sued, will be like, okay, so you had a lawyer put out a statement for all of you. That's done. Oh, speaking of lawyer putting out a statement, that is the one thing we didn't cover yet. Hold on. We got to do that. We got to do the lawyer statement. I totally forgot. Where is the lawyer statement? Their one lawyer did put out a statement. So let's get to their one lawyer statement swiftly. And then I have got to yeet and get to a meeting because merch takes time. We have to do merch things. All right. This was given to Ted Daniel, November 18th, 2025, 12:17. I'm pretty sure that's Central because I think that app shows up in my time. New statement from the attorney or attorneys for Brian Higgins, Alberts, McCabes. Quote, the allegations made by Karen Reed are entirely false, defamatory, and without merit. They can't be defamatory if they're in court filings. But they're going to argue they were said not in court filings. Fine. The allegations made by Karen Reed are entirely false, defamatory, and without merit. Our clients categorically deny each and every claim. This lawsuit is nothing more than a continuation of a baseless conspiracy narrative that has caused significant harm to the reputations and lives of innocent people. Our clients have acted responsibly, fulfilling their civic duty as witnesses, and have participated appropriately in the legal process from the outset. Counsel, talk to me about those phones one more time. And they're going to say, well, nobody ordered us to preserve them. We can do whatever we want till they're ordered preserved. They weren't preserved. Okay, counsel. Also, why is Higgins in this group with them? When did Higgins get roped into the Alberts and the McCabes? It goes on to say that our clients have acted responsibly, fulfilling their civic duty as witnesses, and have participated appropriately in the legal process from the outset. Ms. Reed's claims distort the facts, misrepresent the evidence, and target private citizens in an attempt to deflect blame. As reported yesterday, we will hold Ms. Reed accountable for the harm she has inflicted and the conspiracy she and Aiden Kearney, also known as Turtle Boy, have manufactured. Oh, they're doubling down on the defamation lawsuit. You know what? I don't know where they're going to go with the defamation lawsuit, but you know what? If now is the time, this is the case to do it in. Just bring it as a counterclaim. Bring it as a counterclaim because the defense is going to be, we didn't do anything. This is all on them. And they're saying all about this about us publicly. Bring it in the counterclaim. Fine. At this point, I'm full mention it all.
Mention it all. Mention it all.
You know who's going to hate that? The O'Keefes are going to hate that because they don't want their wrongful death trial with Karen Reed in the bars to become a vetting of everything from 34 Fairview. Karen Reed's position on that is going to have to be, but that's my defense to wrongful death. I didn't cause a death, so it's not wrongful death. I didn't do it. And there's all this other stuff with them. So it's going to have to be vetted one way or the other. The question is, will it be vetted by the same jury that is hearing the wrongful death case or not? And that's going to start to proceed in the wrongful death case, arguments over whether or not this case with entirely different parties can be brought in. And I think that's where the court is going to take pause because right now it is the O'Keefes versus Karen Reed and the bars. Karen Reed would pull in Tully, Proctor, Buchanan, Canton, MSP, Alberts, McCabes, Higgins. That pulls in a lot of parties that are not already in this suit, making everything more time consuming and complex. I'm going to pronounce this terribly, Miss Mays. I apologize. They should have a panel on legal woes at Bravocon. I don't think they want to piss off the Bravo Lebs. I think that would make them mad, but yes. Monuments of speculation. Hope your Bravocon trip to Vegas was glorious. I'm exhausted. It was fun. It's Vegas. It's not restful. It's fun. Eliop said, I'm loving my EDB Air March ready for vacation. I had fun taking it with me too. Tiny Dragon said, these people don't understand civil discovery. They're going to find out, aren't they? They're going to find out a lot about civil discovery. Music to My Soul said, can the cases still be consolidated in state court, even though Karen filed the suit in a different county than the O'Keefe suit? Yes, they can. Because they're all in state court. Yes, they can. Alice said, how about the jury instructions? The jury instructions on this would be a shit show. It would be a shit show. But we'll see. We will see. Rune asked, will the depositions be public? Will they be on video? They will be on video. They should not be public until things go to trial. LL, thank you. I saw that Canoni is releasing the sidebars. We'll see. When we have time to cover it, we'll cover it. Trish Ann, I said I would come back to this question. Can they refuse to be deposed? If any of these parties are worried about potential criminal liability, then yes, there are parts of depositions that they may plead the fifth to. Yes, it is going to be something that is going to take energy and effort to fight. For sure, they are going to have to fight it. But if they're worried about criminal, then they are going to have to consider what questions they need to plead the fifth to. Virginia gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much. Let's see. I'm looking for other questions real quick because we have to zoom. Barbara said, even being a lawyer from Brazil, I hope John's family learns the truth. I hope so too. I think there are so many hurt feelings. It's going to take them years. They deserve peace, and so does Karen. Proctor and this investigation are a shame. It's heartbreaking. 100% it is. 100% it is. Let's see. LB said this whole mess is just the Spider-Man meme from Donna Adelson's trial or The Office. Take your pick. It really feels like it, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens because it is not going to happen quick. This is not going to be speedy. This is going to take time, and there are going to be a lot of significant legal issues here, for sure. Annie said, why get rid of it if not guilty? I think there is as equally reasonable a consideration about what else may be on their phones. CEG, Proctor, Albert, dude, where's my gun? So I don't know if it indicates guilt in this investigation or shenanigans in other investigations. I think both are possible. Unfortunately, we don't know. And the jury's allowed to make reasonable inferences. And they're going to, because they're going to be told the timing. I am late. Friends, I know there are a lot more questions. I want to go through all of them. I know we're not going to get all of them today. We are going to be talking more about Massachusetts tomorrow. I've got these questions saved on the back end, so we will do some more Q&A on this tomorrow. I am sorry that I have to scoot. I have to scoot to a meeting because I want to make sure I get merch to you guys soon. Like very soon. Like very, very soon. Bad girl, I love Nashville Airport, and I think that is amazing. I'm glad you had fun at the Nashville Airport. Isn't it great? I like the Voodoo Donuts. They have good stuff. Nashville Airport is great. So with that, y'all, I have to jump. I have to get to a meeting. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. We have way more to chat about tomorrow. Don't forget, it is holiday season. Take advantage of my deal with FOREO Sweden. Thank you for sponsoring today's stream. All the stuff is linked down below if you want to get that discount, either shopping for someone or shopping for yourself, because it's fantastic. I saw the FOREOs in the hotel shop in Vegas, and I was like, I have a better discount. I was so tempted to put like use code on the window, and I was like, no, we're not doing it. It's fine. It's fine. If people want to buy it at the hotel and spend more, they can. But the Law Nerds aren't going to. With that, Law Nerds, I will see you tomorrow. We have much to talk about in the Brian Walsh case, and we'll see what pops off between now and then because it's going to be something. All right. Bye. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you don't miss a live stream or any of the updates on the cases that you care about most with the Lawnerd app at lawnerdapp.com. It's a free download on iOS and Android, so I can keep you in the loop, because you never know when something's going to pop off. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a Lawnerd.